Welcome to Pitching Pixels. I'm Tennyson E. Stead. This is Greg Schwartz.
Hooray.
This is a show where we sit down and we break down video game content and gaming content as adaptation for film, for TV and film, basically. Let's see. This channel is Jump Rangers. Jump Rangers is my gaming project. Are you okay, Greg? You look like you're having an emergency.
I was typing in Cyberpunk tabletop since I want to bring it up. So we're doing Cyberpunk today.
We're doing Cyberpunk.
And I hit enter, and I got this really weird code console on my browser.
Nice.
Maybe I accidentally hit Control Enter or so. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I see.
And so I was just like, "What was that?" So
That's
I
a
just
very Cyberpunk problem to have.
Yeah, I just closed the tab and did it again, and there were no issues. Sorry, that was
No worries.
That was the reason for my weird face.
Jump Rangers is a storytelling universe. Right now, best expressed in a tabletop role-playing game. And there's some stuff to talk about there too, which maybe we'll talk about on stream because it is pertinent to the stream. There's also a novel which I'm in the process of rewriting, and I rewrote the first chapter this week. I'm very happy with how that came along, and I have some cool stuff that happened there. Yeah,
I saw that you deleted the notes that I had given it.
The notes are still there. What I did was I was trying to get a fresh copy to just put on the web.
Got it.
So that people wouldn't read what you had to say necessarily. I didn't want to expose your notes side by and so I was but the notes are still there. All the everything got checked off. And I undid.
I don't take it personally at all. I mean, you and I had talked about that for a little bit. It seemed like it kind of fizzled. I mean, it's your project, right? Like whatever is best for you.
I needed to find. I did the wrong way of trying to. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I can undo, and then make a copy, and I was like, no, just make the copy, and then that's what I did. So
so it's like when I'm doing new revisions on a script, all I do is I just save the revised script with all of the revision marks and the colored pages, and then I hit Control A and I just clear all the revisions.
See, I didn't do that. I did it. I did it the wrong way.
Honestly, I didn't realize that was the most efficient way to do it up until about a month ago. So 37 plus years of my life, I was doing it a way more inefficient way, kind of thing.
So, Jump Rangers is all about kid space commandos trying to carve out a place in the galaxy for humanity. Right when humanity was figuring out their life on this planet, the skies were darkened with the motherships of the Saurian horde. Telepathic Tyrannosaurus Rexes and a whole army of undersaurs working under them just swept us off the planet. And the only way we could survive was by sneaking aboard these alien spaceships and living in the walls and the dusty corners. And we did. And while the grown-ups have kind of spread out into the galaxy like bedbugs, there's this brave group of kids that are looking for ways to stop alien extermination efforts or help refugees get from one planet to another aboard these alien starships and everything else. The whole universe is kind of defined by the fact that humanity doesn't have interstellar travel of our own, so we have to steal it or borrow it. We have to sneak aboard other people's spaceships. And the Jump Rangers are the kids who are making that future possible for humanity and trying to make things better, while the grown-ups kind of cling to what we have. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of adventure. There's high stakes. There's a lot to it. And follow the Twitch. Follow us on Blue Sky and Mastodon. Follow us on Instagram for more information on what's coming from Jump Rangers. There's a lot to read. The tabletop role-playing game is free to play. All the supplementary material are what I'm asking people to pay for through the coffee. So there's a lot there.
I'm trying to get some inception for my social media post here.
I see. So that's
I guess it's not really going to work.
That's what we do on this Twitch. And, basically Pitching Pixels is an opportunity for Greg and I to talk craft and show off craft. I've been a screenwriter most of my life. I'm a working script doctor in Hollywood. Greg is a fantastic screenwriter and filmmaker as well. This is our opportunity to talk through that stuff. Well, you're welcome. Do you want to let everybody know what's going on with you, Greg, and where they can find you?
I'm making a movie. That's all I'm doing. I'm making a movie. I'm doing my best to make a movie. I'm Greg Schwartz. I'm the president and owner of Mighty Fox Productions. We have a YouTube channel. We have Instagram. You can follow me personally on Instagram at Ninja Bicycle. Yeah, really, that's all I got.
Let me ask you this, because
Yeah,
it's pertinent to my life, and I'll explain why in a second. But
sure.
why Mighty Fox?
I feel like, can I say this? Am I going to get in trouble with like copyright infringement here if I say this?
Probably not. It's okay to be
I
a
don't.
fan of something.
I don't think I will get in trouble.
You're not
Because
if you're
the whole thing was that it was I changed it from Great Fox Productions to Mighty Fox Productions. I didn't change it. It was never Great Fox Productions. My handle forever has been like the Great Fox 2000 or TGF 2K for short because oh god. Back in the long ago, the before time,
uh-huh.
when Nintendo Power was a magazine and would publish like certain world records of video games in their magazine. I mean, and I did. I broke the record, and so I never got it verified or anything, but I broke the record for the greatest number of kills, ships destroyed, whatever you want to call it, on the main level difficulty of Star Fox 64.
Which was a fantastic game, by the way.
Wonderful game. Wonderful game. That's a game that deserves a movie for sure. And I think
I think
I
this is
have
the time
heard.
for a Star Fox adaptation too.
I actually think I have heard that there may be one in the works already. Which would be interesting. But yeah, so like, if you beat if you beat the main game and you got medals on all the planets, you could do expert mode. Expert mode had like way more ships, so you could like triple the score that was attainable in the main mode. But main mode, I broke the world record many times. I always wanted to get it verified. My parents would never play ball with me because it was like you had to take video or photographic proof and like go get the
Oh
film
my
developed and
gosh,
send
that's
it
not even.
in.
That's such a small. Oh, come on.
Dude, are you familiar with the kids show from Nickelodeon? It was the game show. I think it was called
Double
What
Dare.
Do You Do?
Oh,
It was in that vein, right? There was slime, but I think it was called What Do You Do? And what it was is they would have the panel of the Nickelodeon, stars, the people from all that, Danny Tamborelli and Nikki, what's her name? I can't remember. Keenan and Kel and Amanda Bynes. And it's just like, like all of them. And it was like 20 questions. They could ask you yes or no questions. But so like there was a host and there was a kid with like a talent or a hobby or had some kind of weird accomplishment. And they would put up this board with like blank blank and blank blank blank, and it was just like literally they had to fill in the blanks. If they said the word, they automatically got it. They didn't have to like guess it. If the word came out of their mouth and the word was on the board, it would turn over. But so when I was in third grade, I started in third grade. My mother and I were breeding and selling African pygmy hedgehogs. And so I really wanted to be like, yo, let's like send for this. Like they would love that on the show and they would also never get it because like how
yeah,
are they ever going to come up with the word pygmy
yes,
kind of thing.
yes.
Um and they just like yeah, they never wanted to play ball. Um but so with Star Fox, because I in my brain was like, I'm a world record holder in Star Fox. Like everything, the Great Fox was the mothership in Star
Okay,
Fox.
okay.
That was where the R wings would launch from, kind of thing. That was the Carrack, right,
Yep.
of Star Fox.
Hmm.
And so my handle became the Great Fox 2000. And when it came time to formally like incorporate and certify my production company, as like I can't do Great Fox Productions. That one might be too close to the copyright. So I made it Mighty Fox
There you
Productions, which
go.
is really cool because now I this is my MF production company.
That's
and it just gets, it's like Samuel L. Jackson with the wallet at the end of Pulp Fiction.
yeah,
That's my badass motherfucker.
yeah. That's very good. That's very good.
And so it worked out. But
That's
yes,
very good.
that's where the name of the production
Very
company came
relevant to
from.
the stream, as it turns out. Um,
It's tangentially, sure.
my wife is Sukpiak and Alutik, and so just to be absolutely clear, this is not me saying my wife has a spirit animal. This is me saying my wife has a spirit animal. Like, and my wife's spirit animal is the fox.
Okay.
So foxes are a huge part of our life, and foxes are always turning up in our life, and it's very funny, like that you showed up with foxes because because
What does the fox say?
yeah, it's a theme. It's an ongoing theme, and Fox has been very good to my wife. Like, and this is one of those things where, like, just to be absolutely clear, if anybody's paying attention, having a spirit animal means that you were given a spirit animal by your elders or by your parents or something. Like, this is not like, I'm not saying like Spam is my spirit animal. Like, that's not what this is. Like, my wife is Sukpiak. They have spirit animals in her culture, in their culture,
Yeah.
and that's part of what happened.
My
So
my mother actually like participates in Native American powwows like all the time, kind of thing. She does really good beadwork and has actually been, like accepted, as far as I know, has been like fairly welcomed into the community. Um and I actually do believe has like an honorary native name, although I don't remember what it is, kind of thing. But I can of course attest to everything you're saying. Like it's just part of the tradition. It's part of
yep.
the culture.
And it
Absolutely.
depends on what tradition and what culture you're coming from. Not every native
Right.
peoples have spirit animals. It just turns out that the Sukpiak people do, and this is one of the few things that, and it's we've talked about this on streams before. It's a culture that's hanging on by a thread. So
Yeah.
this is one of the
It,
things
it
where,
well, to be fair, it has been for quite some time,
well, in particular
unfortunately.
with regards to the Sukpiak people, it's only been hanging on by a thread since World War II,
Okay.
and we talked about why that is. There was a huge mass forced
Yeah.
relocation. All the elders, it was a mess. It was a mess. And I'm not going to necessarily burden this conversation about cyberpunk with genocide, but there was a very recent genocide, and it didn't need to be that way. So,
We're from a planet called Earth. We're humans. We do it
yeah.
too sometimes,
But
which is great.
foxes
Great
are
Rick and Morty one.
a source of joy in this house, a common theme, and it was very intriguing to me that you showed up with foxes like front and center.
Kitsune.
And that's a good reason. I think there's so much. Like, you look at the success of Genshin Impact, so many of the either furry themed games that are out there right now, or what. Like, there's no better time for a Star Fox movie than right now. This is like, they should have been making it already. Like,
I do think I actually feel like I saw something the other day that it's in development.
so
Uh,
while you look that up, let me say that I have done some research into the rights around Cyberpunk over the course of the last week, just to find out what's going on. And the
sure.
deal. So RL Talsorian Games is a really cool game studio for a number of reasons. Partly because it's Black operated and Black run. The owner of RL Talsorian is a huge dork. What's his name? I got to look it up. But he built he built he built this. Let's just take a quick look. It was on the Wikipedia.
Can I just say real quick, because
Yeah.
I ended up on Reddit
Yeah.
to looking to see if there was a Star Fox movie in development.
Yes.
Here is the talk that I
Mike
just saw
Potts.
is like, there's talk, rumors, speculation. It's very likely they'll make other IP movies should the success continue. It could all culminate into a Smash Brothers movie, which like honestly that'd be pretty cool, I think.
Mm-hmm.
As for a Star Fox movie, it's possible, but no word yet. A reply was a movie before a new video game, Fat Chance, and the reply to that was you never know. The last Castlevania game was in 2014. Series already had been a sputtering franchise zombie for like 8 years. Then Netflix series came out, and suddenly Castlevania was big again. Edge Runners pretty much single-handedly resuscitated interest in Cyberpunk long before Phantom Liberty came out. I don't know what Phantom Liberty is, but
It's an expansion for, but when they say Cyberpunk, they're talking about the game. They're talking about the
right.
Cyberpunk 2077. So originally, the game I started playing was Cyberpunk 2020, which I think was not the first. But those series of games were created by Mike Pondsmith, who's a black dude and a huge asset to the geek community. And now CD Projekt Red is the creator of Cyberpunk 2077. And CD Projekt Red, if anybody doesn't know, is also the creator of the Witcher game franchise, which is based on a series of popular novels. So they have a history of acquiring content and developing it for interactive. So they contacted Mike Pondsmith and started and they showed him Witcher 2. They started going into development on this at about that time, and the deal that Mike Pondsmith and CD Projekt Red cut is that CD Projekt Red owns Cyberpunk. They have a license to Cyberpunk, which I believe is a license in perpetuity after the year 2077. Everything leading up
to so after 2077, it's never public domain. Did I hear you correctly?
No. In the
I'm
Cyberpunk
confused.
continuity.
Oh, okay.
So from the game that CD Projekt Red made onwards, the Cyberpunk continuity is owned by CD Projekt, or at least is licensed in perpetuity up until putting aside any questions of public domain, which are not going to be in the scope of any film development that happens over the course of this, right?
Right.
Everything that, as I understand it, and I only read a cursory thing, and who knows, but as I understand it, CD Projekt Red has jurisdiction and basically like, what's it called when you have the attorney's rights? What do they call that?
Power of attorney.
They have power of attorney over the property regarding anything that happens after the year 2077 in the
I don't know how power of attorney relates to IP. I only know how power of attorney relates to like other human beings.
What I'm saying is that in order to tell a story in the Cyberpunk universe in 2078, okay,
right,
you do not license anything from R.L. Talsorian Games or Mike Pondsmith. You license from CD Projekt Red. In order to
prior to that,
you license from Mike Pondsmith. So the question becomes, like, what are you trying to do with the movie, and who do you want to work with? Because, which I think is an interesting and intriguing question.
I mean, are we discussing this as maybe we don't make this like this year, we make it in 50 years kind of thing? Is that the question?
No, I'm saying, when do you set the game? If you're telling a story in the Cyberpunk.
Oh, is that what you mean? You're not talking about like real world years with the rights. You're talking about if you do something in the universe and you set the story.
Ding, 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 ding. Yes.
In the year 2077 or prior, or 2078 and further.
No, it's 2077 and further, or 2070.
Got it.
Like, presumably it's New Year's Eve 2076.
Okay.
Like, and everything, like 11:59 p.m. 2076, and everything prior to that belongs to Mike Pondsmith and R.L. Talsorian Games. Midnight 2077 and now,
the only reason it's confusing me is because when we talk about like belong, it's like there's like meta context, but we're not talking in a meta context.
Now I'm assuming. But here's the thing: I think that the meta context, CD Projekt Red was very careful, as it turns out, to preserve the storytelling context of the Cyberpunk world. But it's all fixed. So if you are using that information as backstory and context, if you're not I would assume if you were to make a movie in the universe of Cyberpunk 2077 forward, you would not be able to do flashbacks
because of how. Okay.
unless you sign deals with both. Now, this is just, believe me, this is just,
Wow,
all
that's
so
really complex, kind
so
of like
so much of
legal
this depends on
thing.
how the contract is actually written. Like, so much of this
Right.
depends on the actual legal wording of what's going on there. But like, there's a really
Woof.
interesting rights issue here, like, which to me is a huge opportunity, because here's the thing that, so let me talk about cyberpunk as a genre for a second.
Sure.
Everyone rightfully, and because of the work of William Gibson, associates cyberpunk with noir, which is true. Fair enough.
Which war?
Noir, Noir.
Oh, no, noir. Okay, yes. Yeah.
Um, the video game, from what I've seen, has punk themes, but it is much more focused on the noir tone. And
Okay.
the tabletop role playing game, while certainly encouraging noirish gameplay, is inherently written to be played by teenagers and young adults. Like, it's rambunctious in nature.
Sure.
Like, so here's my case.
Hmm.
If you are exclusively interested in the lighting and the gravelly voices, like, then yes, you should be adapting the video game because it's more popular and people know it. But I think that's a little bit of a wasted opportunity because you're building a universe, and universes are more colorful than just one color. That's not like the in the video game, the bright lights of the city, all of the colors, all of the holograms, all of the oppressive media is a substitute for black and white. It is just standing in for that same tone. Whereas the there was a lot of punk in Cyberpunk 2020, like, and punk isn't about monochrome anything. Punk is, and punk isn't necessarily colorful either. Punk is about fucking up the establishment. And
Eh, I really can we talk about that?
yeah,
Like what punk is real quick.
yes,
Because I really like that. Because I watched the Book of Boba Fett because I love The Mandalorian.
yeah,
And I'm a big fan of the franchise, to be honest. I understand that there are perhaps some writer issues with it, but like it doesn't matter. It's fun.
it's
uh,
fun.
You know,
You know what? It
um,
was it was more
but
active than a lot of Star Wars stories. It was about Boba Fett claiming what he
absolutely.
wanted, and also thank you for finally
Mm.
giving this actor a.
And
He's
he deserved it.
this
He's a
man.
really good actor.
This man has
Really good
pulled the
actor.
Star Wars franchise on his back for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like,
And also, I'm totally blanking. Pedro Pascal is wonderful.
he's a delight.
Yeah.
And now I'm forgetting Ming Na Wen. Like, how are we gonna not
Yeah.
appreciate? Like, no,
But I think about Book of Boba Fett. We talk about punk, right? And Book of Boba Fett, they tried to lean into cyberpunk.
yes,
Not the franchise, but the
mistakes were
subgenre,
made.
right?
Mistakes were because of not understanding what punk is.
And it came out looking like a little bit Power Rangers-y, because yeah, obviously it's like, okay, well, we'll have one with a green color, scheme, and one with a blue color scheme, and one with a red color scheme, and one with a yellow color scheme, and it's
Although I have an alternative take on that. Which I think. But finish what you're saying.
well, this is why I wanted to talk about this, right? Because I think like this idea of like what is punk actually? Because that's like this a word that gets conglomerated into a lot of things. Like
Yes,
I am a big fan of steampunk, right? But like all that, like when we say steampunk, all we
there's
really
nothing
mean
about steampunk that's punk. Period.
is like gears. Like mechanical fantasy,
Yeah.
right? Like that's kind of what steampunk is, just mechanical fantasy. Wild Wild West is a steampunk western.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And The books I absolutely adore that I hope, I get to adapt in my filmmaking career. Genuine. It's like it's the one book series I genuinely want to adapt, which is the Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. That's all steampunk fantasy. There is some actual fantasy in there, but there's like, if we're being honest, there's no punk. There's no punk, but we call it steampunk. And so to me, I think that like Book of Boba Fett maybe did, honor the cyberpunk, I don't know, subgenre to what it is, but I think that it's not the project's fault, but maybe that like it's a misnomer.
I would like
Just
to submit.
like steampunk is a
I would
misnomer.
like to submit that I think that they may have been trying to do too much with those characters because
They're always trying to do too much.
something else that thematically speaking, and this is why we say don't write to theme, right? But one of the other things that I think Dave Filoni was trying to do, which I appreciated even though I don't think it came off right, was show some love to American Graffiti.
Okay, I hate that movie.
That's fair.
Not because it's a bad. I don't think it's a bad movie, but this again falls into the category of things I was subjected to against my will as a young child, which is like, again, I'm
Yeah.
and I have no shame in admitting this anymore because I learned how to verbalize this in such a way so that people don't think I'm just a weirdo. But like, I hate The Nightmare Before Christmas. Not because I think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I actually think, really, it's probably one of Tim Burton's best. But I hate the movie because my parents dragged me to see it in a theater when I was 8 years old and I didn't want to see it. Like, I was very skittish when I was younger. I hated scary things. Like Independence Day gave me nightmares for 2 weeks when I was a kid because I watched it when I was like 7 years old. And it's just, it's not a great movie for many 7-year-olds. I'm sure there are 7-year-olds that would just like love it and
Yep.
go for the ride kind of
Yep.
thing. I was not one of them. And so like, movies like that and Doctor Strangelove, like I will never have like good feelings about Doctor Strangelove, despite the fact that it's an absolute classic.
Welcome back,
Because it's
Milo.
just like, again, I was just like kind of forced to watch these things with my parents. And it's like the crazy thing is that like
Yeah.
the movies that they loved that I genuinely would have loved,
Yeah.
like Full Metal Jacket,
Yep.
maybe not when I was young, right? Like Full Metal Jacket, probably not. But like, I didn't even start getting to really watch like a bunch of the Mel Brooks movies until I was, like 8, 9, 10 kind of thing. And it's like, why aren't you letting me watch Spaceballs and Robin Hood Men in Tights and Blazing Saddles instead of, Doctor Strangelove and American Graffiti and you know what my
Yeah. I
father
had the same
you know
thing. My parents didn't want me watching cartoons
yeah,
because it was
my parents
juvenile.
my parents didn't want me playing video games. My parents were convinced that like me playing video games was a gateway to violence kind
See,
of
I
thing.
had a different. My parents didn't want me playing consoles because they thought it dematured me. They did
Well,
like me playing PC games because they thought it was teaching me how to use computers, and they
well,
knew
they
that.
let me. So you're right. I do need there does need to be some kind of clarification there. My father was a computer programmer, so we were a PC family. We had America Online in 1996,
Oh, see, my
kind of
dad
thing.
was an industrial designer back when 128 was still the center. My dad worked with like Compaq. He worked with Apollo Microsystems. He worked with
You mean Route 128?
yeah, yeah. When
Yeah,
Dedham
which
Dedham,
all other people would
Massachusetts
know
used
is
to be
Route
the center.
95.
Yep. It
But
used to be
yeah, to us
Dallas.
it's 128.
It used to be Dallas, and
Yep.
literally Dedham, Massachusetts was the
Before
center
Silicon Valley.
before Silicon
Yep.
Valley. And
Before Silicon Valley.
and I think we talked about the show Halt and Catch Fire. That was
Yes, I haven't seen it yet, but yes.
it was Lee Pace and Mackenzie Davis before people.
I'm pretty sure I still have it on my watch list.
That was the culture that I grew up in. That was my youth. That show captured the people that I knew as a child perfectly. And
I'm reasonably sure that the IBM headquarters in Dedham is where my father got his first computer programming job in the 70s.
that's astounding. My dad worked there. My dad designed the first 386.
My father, is your father still with us?
He's around. He's in Woburn.
I mean, he's alive though,
Yeah, he's in
right?
Woburn.
Like my father is not alive, so I can't ask him. My
But
mother maybe would know. I don't know.
my dad was
But
always. I mean, my dad was a, like I said, he was an industrial designer. He was a visual artist who was hired to
all
figure out
right,
the
so he wouldn't have worked with any of the coders,
no,
kind of
he
thing.
would, but he did work with
Okay.
some of the hardware guys. And
I'm seeing my mom tomorrow. I'll actually ask her if it was like the IBM headquarters in Dedham,
he
because
knew all those
that would
people. He
that'd
knew
be
all those
pretty.
people. Sun,
That'd be a
Apollo,
pretty small
IBM.
world kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was. And
wild.
my father worked for IBM. I'm positive of that because again, the first machine we had was an IBM Unix machine. I mean, I grew up playing Tetris and Hoyle and Leisure Suit Larry and
Yep,
King's Quest
yep,
and
yep.
what it was Blockout, which was three-dimensional
I
Tetris.
remember Blockout. My dad got me an Apple IIe as soon as they were on the market because he knew I
My
would need to.
mother was an absolute master at Blockout. Tetris, she was good at Tetris, but Blockout
Made sense
was
to her. It made perfect sense
was
to
the
her.
game she was born for. Oh my god, she was so good at it. And she's not really a gamer. She's like, I mean, she played,
For
card
anybody who's
games.
paying attention, it's top
Yeah.
down, so the shapes start right next to the
Yeah,
camera, and they
it's bird's eye view.
okay,
It's
yep,
and
and
it's
it's a
like
cube. You're dealing with a cubic space, and you draw
green
parts.
lines, yeah, green grid lines on black graphics. That's like ASCII 2 graphics or whatever it is. And yeah, but it plays just like Tetris. It's just, it's a bird's it's like you're looking into the well
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yep.
And oh my god, she was never really a big gamer, but that I don't know if I would have ever been better than her at that game kind of thing. And I'm sure she still got the old machine somewhere. I don't think they
My
gave it
mom
away.
loved
But so like
Brickout. My mom loved
when
Brickout. She loved playing Brickout.
I don't is that the one where you destroy the bricks with like
The
the
paddle.
one sided pong
Yeah,
basically?
it was yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite games of all time. I adore that game, like those kinds of games, the brick destroying games. Oh my
Arkanoid,
god, I like those.
Arkanoid, basically.
Yeah,
Arkanoid
Brick
was
Out
great.
too. But so like when I was in third grade, because my parents were, we were a computer family. We got a gateway, with a 28.8K dial-up modem. America Online 3.1, I think is what it was back then. And I started being able to play all of like the Learning Company games, which is what like we talked about those. Like
Carmen
I
San
was
Diego.
I not that one, but the biggest game for me was when on the DOS machine, I was able to play things like Treasure Island, and I want to say like we could play the original King's Quest 4 and 5 could be done on the DOS machine because we had those, the 1 3/4 inch diskettes that you inserted
Yep,
kind of thing, and you would just run the game off those.
yep.
But the newer machine was able to run like the Incredible Machine and Gizmos and Gadgets, like one of my all-time favorites as a kid. And there was a brain game that I'm blanking on, and I've been trying to remember what it was. I want to find it again, but it was like it was this game. It was a brain training kind of game, but it was fun. It was for kids, where like you had different epochs of Earth history, and the games were like thematic to the time period. So the early, and it wasn't like you had to beat one to progress to another. You could pick which like epoch you wanted to play in. But so like the earliest one was the Primordial Ooze. And this was like as close to a like real-time strategy game as the game would offer, but you start as like this single-celled amoeba and you were green. And the bad amoebas were yellow. And you had to like go around and grab like little protein power-ups and little things that would cause you to undergo mitosis. And then you could like attack. You would have like this small army of green single-celled amoebas, and you would try to attack and conquer the yellow single-celled amoebas, and the goal was just to win. And
Yeah.
then like the second one was like spelunking, which is where you are this kind of amphibious trying to evolve fish, I guess, and you have to spelunk in the caves to search for things, and then I guess you grow legs if you succeed.
Oh,
And
okay.
you can get on the
I
land.
see.
And then like the most futuristic one was like the logic puzzle where you get like it's very much like the Futurama heads in the jars kind of thing, but it was brains in the jars, and the brains will all give you clues. And so you're given this scenario grid where it's like a common one would be like you're given four names of teenagers, and you're giving four numbers which correspond to ages, and based on the clues you have to figure out which character is which age.
I
And
see.
it's like, Sammy is older than Sammy is older than Sally, but not as old as Ben.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to process and assimilate all of the information before you can like figure out the puzzle
Yep.
kind of thing. And there were different difficulty modes. Like the hardest one of that ends up being like a 16 by 16 grid. It's like it can be very involved to figure
Yeah.
that stuff out. But like, so those were the kinds of PC games that I got to play in King's Quest 6. And so it really wasn't until I was able to start playing some RPGs on that machine.
Hmm.
Like Final Fantasy. I think I even got Mega Man X for the PC
Oh,
at
wow.
one point. And what it was that convinced my parents that it was maybe video games weren't the devil. Is like, Bobby Boucher, video games are the devil.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of like, it was never that aggressive or like,
My mom had questions when I started
wa-
playing Dungeons and Dragons, but
wanton.
yeah.
Yeah, but like really, like they didn't have a high opinion. But my father, my parents met at the New England Conservatory of Music kind of thing. My father was a classical pianist. I have his, grand piano in my living room kind of thing. I inherited it.
Okay.
That's the one thing I will make sure that I will die before I let that piano fall into disrepair, because it's a 1920 Steinway that has been
Oh,
kept
that's
up.
lovely. Do you play?
It's Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually started playing again in the past couple of days. I haven't for quite some time. It's hard to. The cat actually really hates it. I am positive, and I say this with all love, that the cat has feline autism,
Oh.
because he grounds himself in the most nonsensical ways, and he is
Yeah.
very sensitive to certain sounds. He hates the piano.
Uh,
But maybe he will get. I don't know, but I haven't played that much. But I've been playing since I was 4. So it's like I'm good enough to impress my friends. I am not good enough to perform anywhere ever, kind of thing.
yeah.
But so, man, my mother was a flutist and played guitar for many years. And when they heard the music in these games, the RPGs specifically, they were like, "That's actually really nice music." And to put this in perspective as to like what the mentality of my parents was like, when I started boxing in 2011. Yes, it was 2011 was when I was old enough where I could make my own decisions and I had my own money. So I was like, I'm going to go to the local MMA gym and start boxing. And I had to kind of try and like rationalize this to my mother because I was still living at home. And she was like, I thought boxing was just like, Rocky. They're just slugging away at each other. And I'm like, no, no, that's the movies. It looks cool. That's not at all what boxing actually is. Boxing is physical chess.
Yeah.
And like and but the whole thing is like, to my mother's credit, right? And my mother is very much the classic example of like failed by her parents kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're both gone, so I have no qualms in saying that. And she would also say that. Where she was just like, her father was extremely neurotic, a misogynist, and had horrible anxiety. And like, my mother had an opportunity to like, I want to say like get a journeyman's pilot license at the age. My mother was a genius. Right? My mother graduated high school a year early. Like it was like she had an opportunity to get like a journeyman pilot's license at 17. She could have been a world-class flutist, perhaps. Like, I think she had the opportunity to go to like this really prestigious, I don't know, camp or apprenticeship or school somewhere for flute when she was really young, and her father said no because it wasn't within like a single day's driving distance for him, kind of thing. Um, my mother got a super raw deal, so I blame her for nothing. I want to be very clear about that. So she's been really good at like learning and evolving with me over the years,
Mm.
kind of thing. And I said, I am blessed for my mother. I would never ask for a different mother or father. But that said, my parents were very limited, especially in their mindset
I
and
get that.
perspective
I
when I was
mine
younger.
too in different ways for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, all of that to say, like when I woke up on my 9th birthday, to find a television and an N64 and GoldenEye
Yeah.
in my room, and they woke me up early so that I could get in like half an hour of game time before school. I was like, I'm still dreaming. This is not reality. This is not
You're
reality,
not my
right? They did not.
parents. I know
You're
this
not.
is
Yeah,
real.
you did. It's like you ever have. I mean, I actually, when I do dream, and I have vivid dreams, very frequently they are lucid dreams because my dreams are typically so foreign to me that my brain recognizes that I must be dreaming.
Hmm.
And so I end up having lucid dreams. So like anytime I win the lottery in a dream, it's instantly turns into a lucid dream because I'm like, "Oh, this is a dream. I'm asleep." kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um you and I have talked about dreams in the past. I'd actually be curious to hear your thoughts on lucid dreaming at some point. Not now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it was like, yeah, there's no way this is real. And then yeah, that was real. And and then it's just, yeah, I got an N64 and then oh god, why did I ever open my copy of like Pokemon Stadium? Why didn't I just leave that sealed in a box? And oh, you know what? The big one of course was just, Mario 64, which is I don't know if you know this. For anyone out there who doesn't know, I actually for many years, and I still do kind of off and on, but I made my paycheck and my business and my living buying, selling, and trading high-end Pokemon cards. And so, I have some knowledge of, a lot of collectibles in the industry, and especially with video games. Like the highest sale for a video game ever was a sealed copy of Mario 64. It was like WATA 9.8 A++. A++ refers to like the quality of the seal, and then 9.8 is the quality of like the box and just the overall integrity and everything. Sorry, the letter is the integrity of the seal. The rest of it is the aesthetic. And like, I think I I gotta beg forgiveness. I don't remember whether there were 7 zeros or 8 zeros, but it was either like 1.2 million or 11 million kind of
I
thing.
see.
But it was well over $1 million. Sealed copy of Mario 64, highest video game at Hammer at auction ever. And there have been copies of like Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue for the Game Boy that have several $100,000 in the really high grades,
Okay.
kind of thing. Certain editions. And then I'm sorry, I've gotten way off topic. I've
No,
gone
that's
way
okay.
off
It's
on a
okay.
tangent
I
here.
can bring us back nice and easy. I just figured I'd let you say what
Sure.
you had to say first. So the question was, what is punk? And actually,
Right.
now this is, legend. This is legend in the music industry. I don't know how true it is, but the word is that Joey Ramone was asked this question at one point, and it's not clear who he was asked by. But he kicked over a trash can. He said, "That's punk." And so the person asking said, "Oh," and then they kicked over a trash can, and they said, "That's punk," and Joey Ramone said, "No."
Right.
Like,
It's just like, oh, wait, that's punk. That's not metal. To me, that's like more metal than.
well,
But yeah, but that's the point, right? Like
metal
punk
metal is
is
easy to understand for me. Metal is brutality. Like this is not
sure.
brutality. Like the point of punk is that you
Would
are
you, real quickly, would you say that metal is? Yes, I agree. It's brutality, but it is not necessarily brutality with violence. It's just brutality, kind of thing.
it
Would you say that?
anything that's super brutal and awesome is metal.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Like
Okay, we agree.
like anything that's super brutal and awesome. And so
I
like
think yeah, so I think that punk is very simply put just anti-establishment.
but also like you can't become the establishment. You have to fight the establishment at every turn. Like you have to.
So this is a great question, right? Is Green Day punk?
I think there was a day when they were.
Unequivocally, like when Dookie was released, right? 100%, they are punk. But like
Here's the real question:
now,
is Nirvana punk?
I see. I'm not a huge Nirvana fan.
No.
I
Evan
look.
says no. It's alternative.
I respect what they did, but like people who are like Smells Like Teen Spirit is the great, like every time I see like a VH1 or MTV list of the greatest like rock songs
Yep.
ever written, Smells Like Teen Spirit is always number one, and I'm just like, this is moronic.
Well,
I'm
here
sorry.
let me say this
It's
though.
not that good of a song.
No, that is true. But what makes punk good, and this is something that's universally true in the punk scene,
Sure.
although not necessary. I'm not saying you can't have craft, but what makes punk good is not the craft. Like you like, and there,
Is it the struggle?
yeah, but not just the struggle. Like not even just because the struggle can be like sometimes the struggle is more metal. Like punk isn't. It's
The willful resistance
the
kind of
willfulness. The
thing?
willfulness is key. Like the willfulness is absolutely key. And so
It's an undercurrent of anger, would you say? Like just existentially?
typically yes, although like as soon as that becomes systemic, the answer is no.
Oh, like once it becomes part of doctrine, then no.
Yes.
So, okay, would you say then that punk is epitomically contrarian?
Yes, and gleefully so often. Although the
Right.
like
Yeah, it's literally just it's about being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. Why?
that's kind of at the essence of it, I think, but at the same time like they're also like the 90s really tried to exploit the punk scene. So, being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian has also been played out.
What does your partner think of Blink 182 then?
Fergus, do you have any opinions? Well, first of all, Evan's from Seattle,
Oh, okay.
so Nirvana is a particularly hot subject. What do you think about Blink
That's fair.
182, Fergus? Any opinions? What do you mean? Are you asking? Greg is asking if they're punk. I think they try to be. They try to be, which is the saddest kind of punk. Like, like, like that's the worst thing. Like, don't.
Yeah,
And that
I
was
mean,
Joy Ramon's point. Don't try to be punk. That's not punk.
well,
Try
I think that Blink has some songs that are unequivocally punk. Like I think that What's My Age Again is unequivocally punk
Fergus
kind of thing.
likes them a lot, loves them is the word was just used. So like
Yeah.
so there's an
I mean, I love Blink 182. I was just curious as to hear because this actually like the subgenres of music, especially when it comes to rock, I think are so fungible and fluid and hotly debated. I don't like, and I had this conversation about like subgenres of metal. Like, what is thrash metal? What is head metal? What is, rage metal? What is screamo? Like, like what are all these different, what is heavy metal?
there's a
Like,
fantastic documentary series called
yeah.
I believe Global Metal that actually very explicitly explores everything that you're it's a fan if you haven't seen it. I don't know if I've told you this, Dan, my composer is for many years a metal drummer. And
Okay.
and he's also played in a number of punk bands.
Does he have the hair? Does he have the hair?
Not anymore. But he actually he's at a point now where he's gotten to meet Metallica a few times. He's made his money in music licensing, and he handles a lot of their stuff. And
can I just tell you a really when you're done? I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt. Can I just tell you a really quick story about a guy I used to work with?
But
when you're done,
he recently got to tell Lars Ulrich that
Ooh.
he met him when he was 8
Heck.
at a signing at Tower Records in New York City.
That's dope.
And Lars was like, "Oh, do you still have the tape?" Because they gave away tapes at the signing. Yeah. Lars knew exactly what signing he was talking about.
Like cassette tapes?
Yep.
Specifically?
And the next time Dan saw him, he handed him the tape.
Yeah.
And Lars was like, badass, man. Like, and that was like the power, like Dan was like his power broke the scale. He was glowing Dragon Ball like in that moment.
Yeah.
Like
and I think this is a good. I'm glad you told that story, right? Because I think and really, music is not my strong suit. I mean, I like music, but I'm not a music connoisseur, aficionado, expert, historian, whatever. But I would say that just because something is metal does not mean that there is like an absence of love.
No, it doesn't.
I
actually
would say that there must be love.
I don't know anybody in the metal scene who's not super passionate. I don't know anyone, not one person
I think that metal is almost like you have too much love and it explodes out of you, kind of thing.
100% true. And love in
Yeah,
the face of life's hardships. Like that's what
yeah,
metal is
yeah,
about. Like love in the
yeah.
face of like fucking come at me, like that whole thing. And that's not what punk is at all. Punk
Correct. I think that punk is the angry like beaten stepchild of that kind of thing.
yes. No,
Um,
no, I don't think any punk musician would disagree with that. And you listen to a lot of Dead Kennedys, you listen to a lot of LA punk in particular. There are a lot of bands that made their way without a lot of craft. Like, watch Tank Girl as a movie. Like, Tank Girl as a movie is super punk. It is super punk. Like, I wrote. I'm very proud of this script. And Dan didn't think I could do it. I was so when I got Dan's approval on this. I wrote. I don't think I've ever shown you this script. It's called Smash Girl,
okay.
and it's about a girl who's part of a punk gang. She's an LA punk lead in a band called Smash Cock, and
Okay.
they're doing this.
So kind of like a Paramore kind of feel.
You know what? It's mostly screaming. Like she's
Okay.
the band was inspired. Dan took me to a show one night of just punk of punk LA bands, and there was this. I don't remember the kid's name. Dan would know. Shithead was the name of the band, and it was this dopey Hispanic kid. Like he couldn't have been older than 16 or 17, and he had a bowl cut that was covering his eyes. Like and the skinny ass guitarist and a drummer, and he gets up like he gets up on stage. He's like, hey you guys, just gonna sing a song called "Fuck the Government."
And then he just like blew it away, right? Like he absolutely killed it.
And it was like a 45-second song. Like,
Sure.
like it was, and I saw that and I was like, oh, like, it was so good. Like, Dan and I we were completely blown away by this kid and his band.
You know what?
Like,
You know what? You know what that story you just told me reminds me of? You've seen Scott Pilgrim versus the World,
yes,
right?
I have.
It's like that very first battle, the guitar battle, and like they come out and he's like they have the girl drummer too, and he's like, "This is our song. It's called So Sad, so very very sad," and it's literally just like two notes, so sad. Thank you.
Right.
And that's it. And that's it.
Punk should make you feel the way that the characters in Scott Pilgrim feel.
Yeah.
Like punk should make you feel that way, and it did. And Dan and I both walked up being like, "That kid is so good!" Like he had a friend we went because one of his buddies was hosting, put together the event and organized, produced the whole thing, and we both went up and were like, "Oh, it was so fucking good!" Like, and that's so. So Smash Girl is about this girl who that's the kind of music I want it to be. She's like, I'm going to start this show. He introduces the band. She's like, I'm going to start this. It's a shitty, like, black paint globbed on everything. Their manager, Creepy Todd Raven, is in the back trying to sell CDs. There's like 50 people in here. And she's like, I'm going to start this song.
Sell merch. Got to sell the merch.
I'm going to wrote this song about a guy I know who needs no one to write an introduction. It's called Daddy. Like, and she's like, and then she follows it up with a song called.
I like this premise. What's the character's goal? What is she trying to achieve?
She's trying to fucking kill. She's just trying to fucking kill. Like she's just trying to fucking rock. So anyway, they have the show. It's a tiny little place. They destroy. She wakes up the next morning in a crash pad somewhere in Hollywood with like pizza and condoms splattered all over the walls. Peels herself up at the couch. Like peels her band off. There's one person, Clutch, who doesn't say a word during the entire movie. Who's like the lookout person, the getaway driver, Clutch, and she just smokes aggressively.
He's the Harpo Marx. He's the Harpo Marx.
All female band. All female band.
He's the Harp S Mark. She's the Harp S Mark.
So she's absolutely the Harpo. So
yeah.
So they go looking for the Smash Wagon, and there's a ticket on it when they find it, and like Jane's like, "Fuck!" She kicks a parking meter, and it just goes whack. And she's like, "What the fuck is this?" And her bassist is like, "Yeah, dude, you did a shitload of PCP last night." And then we smash cut to Jane doing a shitload of drugs, and then Buds, who's the bassist, is like, "Then you fought a power transformer," and we smash cut to Jane fighting the power transformer, and now Jane is super strong and indestructible. So the question is, what are they going to do with this? So they go to a diner to like figure it out. They decide, let's rob a fucking bank and give the money away. That's so punk. And they go to the bank and she pulls the bank vault up, but they didn't really bring anything to carry the money. They kind of fuck it up, and there's police cops. So Jane throws some bricks at the police copters and chases them off, and they kind of screw it up, and they're bummed out by how bad it was. Meanwhile, Creepy Todd is watching this whole thing on the news, and he comes back to because they sleep at the studio because none of them can afford a place, and
Sure.
he's like, that was amazing, and they're like, yeah, it was okay. And Creepy Todd's like, no, you just need to ask yourself, do you want to carry money for dildos for the rest of your life, or do you want to play fucking punk? And they're like, we want to play punk. And he's like, we're going to get you some new gear. You're going to drive the smash wagon into a bank because no one can stop you. Just tear the bank vault off its hinges and play some music, and they can carry their own money. It's going to be the most punk shit that ever happened. Like
That sounds awesome.
Now,
I want to read that. That sounds awesome.
Welcome to. It's a great script. And then we smash cut to the
Pentagon.
And then we have the Pentagon shot. You know the shot in what's it called? In The Right Stuff, where Jeff Goldblum is running down the hall to open the door. And there's the door at the end of and he runs in and he's like, the Russians got a man on the moon. The Russians got a man in space. That whole thing. Like, so you have that long shot and there's an aide and she's like, we have a code, whatever. And then there's just generals like getting drunk and playing darts with people's lives, like in the Pentagon, and she's got to wrangle this Greek chorus of evil generals. Like they're just like, great, this is the chance we've been looking to nuke Los Angeles. And they're like, no, you can't just nuke Los Angeles. So she's got to try. And so ultimately, the Pentagon is going to try and send them. They have to try and recruit Jane before they can just nuke Los Angeles. And meanwhile, Jane is trying to put on a concert. You've got the LAPD all around the bank. They're trying to get Jane to give back the hostages. Jane's trying to get them to let beer and pizza in and sound gear and stuff because she doesn't. And the whole thing's a mess. Like this. Like,
you know what this reminds me of? Like, this reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, and which I do actually think is an exceptional movie. You ever seen the anime movie Redline?
Yes, I have.
This reminds me of Redline, where it's like, bro, we're just racing. We don't give a fuck about anything else. We don't care what we're going to blow up. We don't care about politics. We just want to race,
so
right?
Jane has to overcome all this stuff to just play her punk music. Like, meanwhile, there's
they're driving the car into the bank vault and just playing in the bank vault. That makes me think of like that moment in Redline where they warp the mothership into like the headquarters of this planet where they're racing against the will of like, and it's like this evil tyrannical empire kind of thing, and they just so the ship can be the finish line. That's it. It's not. It's a ramp to the finish line. That's all it is. And like that's exactly what it reminds me of. And honestly, I'm
gonna send this to you. You're welcome.
I have nothing but good things to say about Redline. Mm-hmm. So I adore movies, and I honestly, I'll be for myself. I haven't put in a huge effort into trying to write a movie.
Yeah.
That the movie, the brilliance and the beauty of the movie comes from the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yes.
Kind of thing. I'm good at writing movies that take themselves seriously. That's my style.
I had just suffered a traumatic brain injury. I was dealing with a lot of anger. I was mad about a lot of things. I wrote 2 scripts in that space. One of them was making the
trick. Maybe the trick is just write it like it's punk. Maybe that's all it is. I would consider Redline to be a punk movie for sure.
You have to. It's like anything else. You have to commit to the action, and the action has to drive. So like the problem with punk in film is that everyone's trying to land a tone. Everyone's trying to sell a product.
It's like trying to sell an observation, right?
Yes, and that is the least punk thing you can do. Is like corporate.
Does punk revel in like the freedom of anarchy kind of thing?
Theoretically,
okay.
Punk scholars would say yes. But like, and a lot of punks would say fucking anarchy. But then
what about like Slayer? As a band, right? Because that's not punk, that's metal.
That's metal. Yes, okay, like sure, and Slayer is clearly influenced by punk, and global metal will say so. Like, but I would also say that real punk is about just going for, and Jane insists on rocking. Jane insists, and no one wants her to do it. and like it gets to the. I'm not going to spoil the ending because there's actually so much heart in the
Oh
ending.
yeah, don't spoil it.
Like,
I'll read it. I'll read it for
but
sure.
then the movie's like over, and Jane's like, "No, I didn't get mine. Movie's not over." Like, and the
Do it
credits
again.
start to roll, and Jane's like, "I'm gonna do my fucking set." Like, tries, and
So
so
there's meta in it
like,
too. I
so the
love it.
credits were like, "Jane, movie's over," and she's like, "Nope, nope," and then the credits stop, and Jane's still doing her set, and you're sitting there in the movie theater wondering if the movie's over, and then finally, like, all the ASCII stuff rolls off, and she's finishing up, and she's done, and then she puts it down, and she looks at the stage that, like, she managed to get into this space because the cops finally relented because she was throwing cop cars, or I forget exactly what happens, but, like, she made her case. She fought her way into this. You see what I'm saying? Oh, I remember how it all
Yeah.
happened. So then she smashes the stage flat because she can. She just pounds everything down while the band sits there and smokes up and watches her demolish the set.
Yeah, just break it up.
And then she's like, "Who wants to buy me a drink?"
So
And then the movie just
almost
cuts.
it also it feels like nihilism is like inherently kind of ingrained in the punk mindset
It
to a
is.
degree, right?
It is.
Like,
Well, here's the thing. Like, not giving a fuck is absolutely
yeah.
part, but it's not. But you can't. There's a difference between not giving a fuck and nihilism. And punk,
Yeah, nihilism is the belief that
nothing
genuinely
matters.
nothing matters.
You
Yeah.
can't be punk if you don't think things matter. Like, being punk is kind of
You just think that everyone like
is a dick.
giving the wrong putting importance on the wrong things. I would almost
Like,
say.
punk is all about understanding that everybody's a dick and they need to be stopped.
Yeah.
Like, and just bringing
the quick thing I wanted to tell you, I'm just going to a couple. I was actually apprenticing under a master pyrotechnician for a little bit in years past, just from my stunt work.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's name was Brian. And you look at him, and he's got the long thrash metal '80s hair, right? Like long and curly, like down to his lower back, rings. Like he looks like he should be in Hell's Angels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was when he started, or I don't know when in his career it was, but he was for a very long time apparently a roadie for Motley Crue, kind of
That's
thing.
a fun job to have. Exhausting.
Yeah, and
exhausting, I bet. Oh my god.
Well, the whole thing was just like it kind of like it clarified for me a lot on like what metal was, because he's very much a like, dude, just live and let live guy. Like, that, but he was a roadie for Motley Crue, and he's a master pyrotechnician. He literally gets paid, by $100 million productions to blow shit up. There was a job I was gonna do with him at one point, and I didn't end up doing it. They rescheduled it, and I don't know, some things happened. But like, we were gonna be setting off grenades in front of the UN building in Manhattan, kind of thing.
Yep.
And this is like, I wanted to get the licenses to be able to do that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I want to be able to blow stuff up legally,
Yeah.
But it's just like, to me, it's just like, that's so metal, right?
That is very metal. That is very metal.
Blowing stuff up legally, but still also just like, you see him, I wish him a happy birthday every year. And at this point, like when I did it this year, he was just like, dude, just don't call me Mr. Shuley anymore. Just call me Brian. It's just like,
that's
okay, all right.
That's very cute.
It's just like, he's a dope guy. I'm sad that I don't ever get to work with him anymore.
The metal scene is so inclusive. I've been to so many shows.
Yes,
like
it is.
It's in many ways the metal scene is the best of geekdom. It's the best.
What? And I perhaps this is maybe a little beyond the scope of it, but to me, I find it really poetic how genuinely antithetical the metal scene is to organized Christianity.
Oh, very much so. Like, to the point where they embrace
really
Satanism as just to piss them off. Like.
But but I don't just mean like the practical empirical antithesis.
No, that's a byproduct. I mean, that's a byproduct of.
Yeah, it is genuinely like the metal community. It feels like to me is all the things that, like, I'm gonna just go with Catholicism tries to preach, but attempts to teach through controlling via fear, Whereas metal just tries to be inclusive and spread it via osmosis
And
of like
empowerment, total
inclusivity,
empowerment.
of empowerment and love kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's just, it blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Metal, it's like metal appreciates autonomy and the individual.
And all the cool dork shit that dorks love. Like, metal is
You
it's
know,
pure celebration. You're absolutely right. It's pure celebration.
You know, I just realized that the movie I've written perhaps is more metal than I have thought.
Oh, it's extremely metal.
It's super metal.
I got Dan Haggerty, my composer, to sit down and watch Autumn Sonata, Ingmar Bergman's film, at one point. And I told him like, he said, "Why am I going to watch this movie?" I said, "It's more brutal than you're prepared to deal with." And he said,
"Not now, because I don't want to take up time in the podcast." Oh, sorry, please. I didn't realize you were not done. Please finish.
And he saw it, and he was like, "That was brutal. Like, that was so brutal. Like, we had to like." And he's like, it was too brutal. It was too brutal. That Ingmar Bergman is metal. That's what he said. Like, Ingmar Bergman is so metal. Like, and the beautiful thing about the metal scene is that they will share the label. They will share the empowerment. They'll be like, "Yes, my mom is so metal. Yes, my dad is so metal. Yes, like, my teacher is so metal. Like,
yeah,
taxes are so metal. Taxes are so brutal. Like, it's all.
I don't know. I don't know if I would hear taxes or so metal. That one I don't know if I can get on board with. But
any metalhead over the age of 27 has done their own taxes.
You don't mean taxes themselves. You mean like doing your taxes is metal.
Or just,
okay,
or just
that
the
IRS.
That or just the IRS. They will come and get you. Like, they will get you. They're brutal. Like, you will find that conversation.
They don't believe in themselves. Yeah, they're puppets.
Yes,
they're puppets.
Like, yes, okay, but you understand this better than most people, and you definitely understand this better than all musicians. What's that?
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
You have a lot more patience than most musicians have to deal with bureaucracy and to deal with procedure. And just the amount.
I don't have a lot of patience for bureaucracy and procedure.
But you have
I get very fed up.
I'm giving you credit for seeing through these things and for doing the math more quickly than they intend it to be done. And most.
Oh well, yes, that I can do. Yeah.
And most musicians are not. You've played music with people, yes. Like.
Not really. I
mean,
I'm not that good.
You are a different. There's a reason why you're directing films instead of playing the piano professionally. Like.
Oh right, yeah, for sure.
And part of it is personality. Part of it is that a lot of musicians don't have the patience to see that learning process forward. They just see people demanding things from them, and they go, "Oof, that's a lot." Like, and that's as far as it goes, and that's fine.
That's not. But that to be fair, I don't want to. We shouldn't just categorize musicians.
No,
that's everyone.
It's absolutely true. But every single craft carries anyway. This is all a big digression. You're absolutely correct about that.
At some point, though, can we talk about the metal of my project? Because now that I have realized that the wheels turn a little bit.
Absolutely, we
and
can.
I would actually like to dive into that a little bit with you, but not on podcast.
You should also talk about it with your composer. So
yeah.
So here's
I should.
Here is where I pitch my tent on the Cyberpunk conversation. I think that the problem with the game and the problem with 2077 and the problem with so many modern interpretations of Cyberpunk, which they leaned into very understandably, right, is that these characters have already conceded the fight.
So, all right, yeah. So I don't know too much about Cyberpunk, so I did bring it up.
But just the grizzled tones of the voice, everybody's already been worn down to a nub by the oppressiveness of this world, and they're just scrapping for what they
many now suffer from techno shock and inability to cope with a world of synthetic muscle tissue, organic circuits, designer drugs.
Sure.
The main location is the fictional Night City, situated on the west coast of the U.S. between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So that's like San Luis Obispo.
The problem is that the world all fits together very nicely. It's all been pressed together. So like
Um,
it's been homogenized into this.
real quick,
Yes.
and you kind of just for me and also for anyone listening, kind of delineate cyberpunk from say like Fallout, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So so cyberpunk as a genre was born with the writing of William Gibson and the publication of Neuromancer as a novel. It's
Yep.
it's the idea that corporations are out of control, which is true in a punk concept, and we're all going to wind up getting chips in our heads and robot arms and legs to make us more efficient at our jobs, whatever. The world is going to be cybernetic in nature. Information is going to flow too fast for anybody to keep track of it. Artificial intelligence is going to be a thing. We're all going to be bombarded with data, bombarded with branding, bombarded with all this crap. It's going to overwhelm us and try and crush our souls. And and you're going to become less and less attached to your physical body in this process because we're all going to start living on the internet, not just on our phones, but physically up, like plugging in and accessing data at higher and higher speeds. So cyberpunk is the idea that there is an inherent conflict between that world and human nature. And the problem with modern cyberpunk and really even the tonal pastiche of the noir of it all is the idea that everybody's soul has already been crushed, which seems inevitable, and I understand that, but that's not punk at all.
Yeah, like I would say like isn't punk
Angry.
the fight
So so
itself?
you so the
Like if you've
yeah,
lost the will to fight, that's not punk.
it is very noir, however, which
But it's just dystopian
it's just
more than
dystopian and
anything else.
noirish.
Yeah.
Correct, correct. So to
I
me,
love as a filmmaker, I love noir,
yes,
right?
yes,
Um and just real quick, like as a filmmaker, my style visually and also narratively is high contrast, low saturation kind of
yeah,
thing.
I get you.
Um
Very
so
noirish
I mean,
inherently. Yeah, yeah.
it's that's inherently very noir. Right? I love playing with shadows,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Like I think that shadows are an incredible medium to visually like do
And
storytelling
because
in.
we had to define cyberpunk, which is oftentimes visually heavily impacted by film noir, true, we
Yes.
should also take it because you have these monolithic. It makes sense because you have these monolithic towers, these corporate towers physically everywhere. Shadows are a part of that. The grisly alleyways, all of that is an aesthetic aspect of cyberpunk. But
Yeah.
film noir
For
is
and for anyone listening who doesn't like exactly know what film noir is, I think the easiest way to describe it is just imagine like a really gritty like PI movie from the
it's all of
50s,
the
you
40s
know,
and the
and
50s.
the 40s.
It
You know,
is
like the woman who has this problem in the dress walks into the PI's office and the PI is behind his desk with, you know, the
yep.
blinds drawn but the light seeping through and the cigarette smoke
It's all
kind
the
of
black and white murder
floating.
mysteries made during World War II. That's
Yeah,
exactly
and you can't see the PI's face. He's totally in shadow, but the cigarette and the tray on the
yep.
desk is in the light. You know, like it's stuff like that, you
It's all
know.
the stuff that inspired Frank Miller in his artwork, and I think
Yeah, there's a lot of Sin City
and and
like noir feel, yeah.
and 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 Sin City and Frank Miller went on to inspire our visual conception of the cyberpunk genre very
Okay.
clearly. So there was a lot of tonal pastiche that was inherited in there, but the beautiful thing about the tabletop role playing game is that you're bringing players into an environment where they are actively encouraged to set things on fire. Like the whole point of Cyberpunk 2020 and the other games that came out in the wake of that is that you're in this world and it's not fair and it's all screwed up and the bad guy is so bad that you're probably never going to beat him. So what do you have to lose? And that what do you have to lose moment is the point where cyberpunk thrives as a genre because you've got all these archetypes of different kinds of characters that you can play in the game. There's people doing medicine, there's like trauma medicine, there's people doing hacking with the plugging in and you know what I'm saying, like scoping out the cybernet. There's all the people who are just really good with guns. and are basically heavies. There's all these different types of archetypes. There's drivers, all the things that you would expect to see in a post. They exist in this world, but as a player, like if everybody's a bad guy and needs to get punished, like let's get started. Like let's LFG is the point of Cyberpunk, right? There's a certain level on which, tonally speaking, the most
You just mean LFG, just the acronym,
yes,
right?
yes,
You're not
yes.
talking about the webcomic.
No. I'm talking about like LFG in the Deadpool sense.
Shout out to the LFG webcomic. Like honestly,
Yeah.
really big fan. And I don't keep up with it anymore, but there was a period of years where I would follow it religiously, every single update. Richard is one of the best characters ever created. I stand by that.
And we've talked a lot about how finding an action for the character is so important. You can't have a character in Cyberpunk without an action, because inherently the one thing that unites everybody, it's like D&D in the sense is like all you have to do is decide who you're going to take down, and
Yeah.
then find people willing to help you. That's the whole thing. And the problem with the noir is that you need that reactive opening. The whole point of the game, of the 2077 game, which again works for interactive, right? Let's take a step back and remember that what works for cinema is not the same as what works for games. The problem
Correct.
with games is that you get your head messed with, and you wind up with an artificial intelligence that used to be a rock singer who is going to take over your
Right.
brain. And so
Okay.
you wind up trying to kind of resolve this character's arc and figure out how to get them out of your head.
Yeah.
Which is, it makes for a great game because you're getting pulled into their world, etc. You're given tasks
Well,
to perform.
it's again, it's like, it's what I say, like books, video games, they're immersive. Film, television is voyeuristic.
You watch it.
You watch it, you don't
Somebody,
participate in it.
so somebody's got to be doing something that you want to watch. You need, and that's
So- Actually, while we're on that note, can I just ask your opinion on a new technological phenomenon that I only learned about in the past year?
Yeah.
I didn't think the technology existed for this yet, but apparently it does in Japan because, let's be fair, Japan has everything. There is this thing. I have a friend who's really into. I think it's just a specific franchise, but the technology exists beyond the franchise, called HoloLive. And they have, what this is like, they've developed motion capture technology enough to the point where, I'm sure you've seen this, like streamers now can like have avatars created, and by using motion tracking software, the avatar can actually represent like the streamer's facial movements and their head movements without actually revealing like the streamer's identity, kind of thing. However, they have figured out how to take this technology and extrapolate it to the point where they can actually have like an entire concert venue. Like, think about like the crazy Japanese concert venues you've seen, like when everyone has like glow sticks and 100,000 people packed into an arena, kind of thing. And then you have all of these HoloLive idols whom no one actually knows the genuine identity of, and there's like, that's part of the allure. In like this empty warehouse, blocks away, a mile away, whatever, all wearing mocap. And they have figured out how to 3D project the avatars into, and I don't mean like, I'm not talking about like the Michael Jackson hologram at like the Grammys. I'm talking about they're projecting these in a 3-dimensional space. They have depth to them. They're not 2-dimensional. It's not like a 2-dimensional thing projected on glass.
Yeah.
It is, everything is projected on glass.
Yeah.
But it's like like a cubic prism, and there are like multiple projectors for each individual avatar.
They have one
and
in Disneyland. They have one in.
Do they actually?
Rise
Like,
of the
they
Resistance.
they generate 3-dimensional holograms that, as a result, like, because the sync with the mocap is so on point, you get these idols whom no one knows the identity of in this warehouse someplace away, doing the dancing, doing the actual singing, right? But it's the holograms that we're seeing, and that blew my mind when he showed me video of it, and it blew me away, because I didn't like. My first thought was like, holy shit, this is going to revolutionize theater. and the stage, because this is going to allow, I mean, maybe there won't be a market for it. I don't know, but it technologically, it would allow for really dangerous and complex stunts for theater work, for
Yeah.
stage work.
Yeah.
People needing to be on fire, people needing to, you know, I won't say get dismembered, but like, really like
It opens
violent,
up a lot of
dangerous
doors. It
stunt.
opens up
It opens up a lot of doors for things like that. And then, so to me, it's like, I do wonder
Mhm.
if we are ever going to see a medium that does blend the immersive and the voyeuristic experience, or maybe that's just too much. Maybe the audience brain can't handle it. It needs to be one or the other. I don't know. I mean, like, look, we've all seen like the crazy things that, like,
The
Disney
disadvantage
with
to
like,
that is not physically being in the space to see the audience. The disadvantage to that
right.
is not being able to read the crowd, which
Well, if you're a stage actor, ideally you're supposed to tune the crowd out anyway, right? Unless it's a
no,
piece that calls for breaking the fourth
no,
wall
I
kind of thing.
disagree. I disagree.
Okay.
I think that the crowd. I think in any performance, even if it's a movie, the audience is always the last character, and I think that the advantage to theater is that you're in the room with that character. So it's not necessarily that you're not like you're not necessarily supposed to like take their feelings to heart or their reactions to heart, but what you do want to do is ride the energy of what they're giving you and hear them. You want to know where they are because it affects your timing. It affects your performance. You know where to land a beat if you know where the audience is and whether or not they're with you. And ultimately, like that creates a punchier, more tuned in performance. Then you know when you need to, and you know when you need to get up and go too. You know when you need to stress X and Y and Z, when you need to put in the extra work. Like you know when you've got them and when you don't. It's like stand-up comedy. It's like anything
That's
else.
fair.
Like
Okay.
that's that's
Yeah, I mean, stand-up comedy, right? Yeah, that's like stand-up comedy is, I think, another interesting, like a really another interesting audience medium to talk about,
yeah, it
right?
is.
Because like it is like stand-up comedy is inherently observational. Like if we're just talking about like straight stand-up
Oh
comedy,
yeah,
we're not talking
it
we're
is.
not talking about like ventriloquism or anything like that. But it's all
It's a lot like
observational.
literature. It's a lot like literature.
Yes, but it can be immersive.
Well, you are making the
Like
observations to the audience, and it's what they're paying you for. So at the end of the day, you want to make observations that they are going to receive with excitement, and ultimately, you
right.
can phrase those observations or dial them in or cut whole parts of your bit if you're like, this isn't. I thought
And
that joke was going
so
to work. Do you believe that shit? And then you make an observation about the joke instead of making an observation that the joke was
yeah, I
about.
think, and making it meta like that, I think, is a great escape route. I have like written stand up routines. I've never performed stand up routines. I think I'd be good at it. I don't want to like try and look up where open mics would be and then make it a whole thing because I'll get anxiety.
Dan
But
Dan
like,
Dan has a thing to say, which I think you'll find funny. I think I may have said this to you, I may have not, but every stand-up comic could have been a musician, has a musician inside them. Did I ever tell you
that's
this? And every musician has a stand-up comic inside
stand up
them.
comic.
Do you know the difference? How do you know the difference whether you're a musician or a comic? Do you know?
Uh,
You either hate the
well,
audience
the
more than yourself, or you hate yourself more than the audience.
I was gonna say it's whether or not you're trying to make people laugh or cry.
No, if you hate
Um,
the audience more
but
than
yeah,
yourself, you're a musician.
you're a musician. Yeah. Um, what was that? I was gonna say, right, yeah. So like going back to like this whole like with movies and film and it being a voyeuristic thing rather than an immersive thing, we've seen the attempts at trying to make those things become immersive. We see that with like 4D things at theme parks. Like there's a Jurassic World, I don't know, ride at Universal or whatever, where like the raptors spit on the screen and you get sprayed with like a
Yeah,
mist
yeah.
in the
Oh,
audience or
yeah.
something.
That's not.
And it's just like that's not it though. Like, and I don't think that's it.
Although Blue
I've
Man
always
Group was
been
a
curious.
fantastic Blue Man Group being from Boston,
Yeah.
like they nailed
Yes.
it.
Well, but again, Blue Man Group is music, right? Like at the end of the day, it's performing arts, but it's still like it's rhythm, right?
Yeah.
There's music to it. My kind of, and I've had this thought for over a decade. Um, I don't logistically know how it could work. I think that there are a couple like things that could be explored, but like I've always really been intrigued by the idea of like, you remember when you were a kid, there were the choose your own adventure
Of
books.
course.
Why don't we have those with movies?
We
That's why
did,
like
we
that
did,
I've
we did
never
for
I've
it.
never
It didn't work. Like we tried. Like
but why like I'm curious as to like because I think that there are multiple ways that that could be approached. So when I hear it just doesn't work, I'm like that to me sounds like people tried one way and it didn't work and so they assumed that the whole thing couldn't work.
well then
To
let me
me,
ask you this. Like, would you
yeah.
say that Skyrim isn't that?
I honestly I haven't played the Skyrim
Or
games.
any modern RPG? Would you say that Mass Effect isn't that? Would you say that
I would right. So
Mass
and this
Effect is
is
very
kind
much that?
of well, so here's the thing, right? I mean, that's the purpose of perhaps a visual novel, right? In the Japanese sense of it, right? That is what a visual novel is you're given a narrative and you just direct the narrative, kind of thing. With RPGs, we talk about how like gameplay is the narrative in modern RPGs or just in RPGs in general, the narrative is a reward for solving the gameplay, kind of thing. And
Yes.
my point is like why do we strictly need the gameplay?
I think it's because at a certain point, like
I think that the freedom of choice is more rewarding than anything else
I
for an individual.
I don't think that's always true. And I think that
I don't think that
from my
everyone could
perspective,
say that about themselves, but I think that deep down that I think people are looking to validate their own identities. And so if they're allowed to make their own choices without consequence, that is an enjoyable experience.
I think, however, that you break your characters. Like every character, like good acting comes from an action. You want the character to pursue that action to the absolute best of their ability. So you ground
Okay.
yourself in a level of specificity with regards to the tools. Their 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 ability to pursue the action is limited, which is what makes the story compelling to begin
Oh,
with.
I don't agree that I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't agree that a choose your own path movie necessarily limits or inhibits or detracts from the actor's ability to do really good things because I do think that a good writer can always come up with multiple singular actions that fit the greater line of action.
I agree that that's true, but as a writer, I think that it's a lot like chess. I think there's a best move in any scenario given the resources that you have. And I think that now some characters are or are not going to see that best move, but here's my point. If they do, if they see a different best move, right? If they see a different best move, that's a different character with different resources, and all of a sudden you're playing a more generalized character. And so you
Hmm.
have to go retroactively back and make room in the beginning for all of those characters to exist in the same character, and you are making less specific choices.
I'm not sitting here saying that to do it with excellence would be easy or not complicated. I think it would be incredibly difficult and incredibly complex. But that said, I do think it's doable.
I think that there is an
Um,
inherent conflict of interest in that creative intention.
I'd like to debate that with you at some point. We don't need to do it
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now, but
So
like
let's have
I would like to I would like to dive into
we'll
that at
table
some point
that and
because I
discuss it.
yeah
I'm all for
yeah
experimentation. You know, I'm willing to try
yeah
anything. So like,
yeah
that's not a problem. So when it comes back to cyberpunk, the thing that I want, that I think you can see how that pastiche and that noirish, slavish attention to noir really
right.
dilutes the punk. Now, here's my case for punk in cinema. Like, yes, Hackers was the first.
Oh, that was your argument was entirely that like noir and the ideas and the identity of punk are inherently at odds,
I think
kind of
that
thing.
I think that total slavishness is at odds with punk. I think we can still have cool lighting. But here's my point. Like, I think that I think that for the being the first cyberpunk movie and for being rightfully embraced as the first cyberpunk movie, Hackers is not punk. Hackers is is selling punk. Like,
Is swordfish punk?
no, no,
Really?
no. But
based on what we've said,
but-
I would have said that Swordfish is absolutely punk.
But Deadpool is very punk.
Oh,
And
yes.
And
Unequivocally.
And Pump Up the Volume is punk. Pump Up the Volume is the same story as Hackers and Swordfish.
Okay.
With all this romance and other stuff thrown in. But
is Save the Last Dance punk?
Damn it. I haven't seen it. Hang on one sec. Let me just do a quick
Save the Last Dance is the ballroom dancing movie with Antonio Banderas, where he goes to teach ballroom dancing to a bunch of inner city Chicago high school kids.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Why?
Because I can already tell you that Save the Last Dance is about teaching a bunch of white kids to be cool.
Oh, no, it's not white. They're not white. They are all inner city. There are some white, yes. But, like, you know, one of the main... And I love this because I watched the behind the scenes of it. One of the main characters in it, well, supporting characters, I guess, is the kid who played Rufio in Hook.
Oh, sure. Did they get his wallet? Did they get Antonio Banderas' wallet? Because if they get his wallet, I'm willing to say it might be punk. Do they rob him?
Jeez.
Do they physically rob him?
They definitely try to cheat him at some point.
I don't know if if these kids are in a room with a grown up and they don't get his wallet, I'm a little disappointed. So, like,
okay, well, all right, fine. Is Hook punk?
No, nothing about Steven Spielberg is punk.
Well, what do I mean? This is with the Lost Boys and everything.
No, first
right?
Of
like,
all,
and the rejection of Peter when he returns, kind of thing.
No, Peter Hook is all about a man rediscovering his inner child.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna disagree. Of course, that's what it's about. Like, there's no arguing.
No, Hook is not punk, but Peter Pan is punk.
Oh, like the character as an identity is punk.
Barry's Peter Pan is punk.
Yeah.
Because when you get right down to it too, Peter Pan is all about, fundamentally, you have to remember, orphans were dying on the streets of London, right and left. The Lost Boys are kids that escaped certain death.
So, like, Robin Hood is punk.
Robin Hood is borderline punk.
I mean, like, Robin, it's like the whole, like, steal from the rich and give to the poor. It's kind of like your Smash Girl idea. It is.
Like, Robin Hood is, except for the gentility. Like, Robin Hood is punk for the time.
Right.
Like,
yeah, except for the manners kind of thing.
Like,
the chivalry.
Yes, we can if we allow for time and place, then yes, Robin Hood is punk.
Is Mulan punk?
No, because
Ooh.
I know Ming-Na Wen is punk though. And
I am is that the voice actress or is that
she's the voice actress. She's also Fennec Shand. Ming-Na Wen is punk. Robin, but the problem.
I love the actress. I cannot stand the character of Fennec Shand. I don't blame Ming-Na Wen for that, but I think it's a horribly written character.
But here's what I'm going to say, especially the first episode. The first episode of Mandalorian 2 is great. That was a great. I love.
Well, you know what my problem with the character is. Ultimately, it's not actually the character. My problem with the character is the dialogue, which is just like
let's not
the worst worst dialogue.
We're going to walk away from that conversation, and we're also going to take a minute for what's his name appreciation, the cowboy hat guy. You know what I'm talking about.
Cowboy hat. Oh. The guy from Mos Espa. The guy from Mos Espa that gives the armor back to Mando.
No, what I'm saying is the man who wrote it seems like an awful lot of a delight to me. Like the guy.
Oh, Filoni.
You can't get mad at Dave Filoni. Let's ease up on the guy. Here's what I'm going to
say. Look, Filoni is clearly a genius, right? Like, he's clearly masterful. But then, like, again, I don't understand why people like Ahsoka as a show.
We're going to table this
conversation. But actually, I kind of wanted to bring it up a little bit.
Being punk, by the way, or not being punk, is not a prerequisite for me liking something. We're having an We're having an academic discussion here. But what I do want to say about Mulan is that Disney institutionalizing, like, there's no way it's punk. I'm getting such side eye from my wife right now. Mulan is not
Probably,
punk, my love.
yeah. Like, I mean, yes. Inherently, because it's Disney, I tend to agree with you. Like, there's an undercurrent of that, right?
And
Where like it
it's not
can't be
and it's not
punk
only
because it's
instrumentalization, but
Disney.
it's cultural appropriation in some really harmful ways. Like
Yes,
like nothing is
but
punk.
but if we looked at it in a vacuum, right? Like if we looked at it only as a story and we ignored that it was made by Disney
That's
and
not
we
punk.
ignored that it was made by
It's not
Western
punk. It's not
culture.
punk to do that. You can't
Okay.
ignore that it's Disney.
All right.
And
All
we're
right. All
talking
right.
about cyberpunk. We're talking about corporations here. Like this whole thing is about knocking corporations to the ground.
So I actually did want to bring up the Ahsoka series.
I got you know what? Let me before we get into that, let me hit if you're looking
Sure.
for the line between what is punk and what is not punk, right?
Sure.
I would say, and please, anyone who ever sees this, hit me up and disagree. I would say the point where you're trying to be punk so hard that it's obvious that you're trying to be punk, but you still manage to pull it off. You see what I'm saying? Like that point where you're trying so hard to be punk, but you know what? Actually, you still manage to stick the landing. Like questionable, but yes, it's punk. Almost not punk. You see what I'm saying? That line is Fight Club.
That Fight Club.
That line is Fight Club. Like,
Okay.
is Fight
Okay.
Club punk?
Okay.
Ugh! Yes.
I mean,
Like,
yes. Yes. Dot.
you see what I'm saying? That's the border.
Yeah, I do.
That's the no man's land. Like,
No, that I mean, and
and
that's interesting because like I think that there are like maybe many kind of movies with that kind of tonal aesthetic feel that you might like,
and let's be clear. When Fight Club came out, David Fincher was coming off of Seven. He was not David Fincher.
it was
He
like what
he
about
had did
Charlie and the Chocolate
he
Factory
had
all
did
of a sudden?
Alien 3 and he had done 7. He had just been
Yeah.
and by the way, I forget which studio it was, but they did not want to make this movie. Like David Fincher was using his success with 7 to cram this down their throats, and it worked. And it was
Still don't
and
understand
it
why
didn't
7
make
was
money in ticket
successful.
sales, but then it cleaned up on VHS and Blu-ray. Like it,
Right, yeah,
like
yeah, on
like
aftermarket
it was
sales,
an
yeah.
aftermarket success. Like they got away with murder. Like that is barely punk. Like if Fight Club is almost not punk, Mulan is not
Yeah,
punk.
there are gonna be then Mulan is not. There's like, like Sweeney Todd, right? Or
No.
I started thinking of like some of the darker like Johnny Depp movies.
I
Sweeney
would
Todd
say
or
Sweeney Todd was punk when it was performed in a black box and it was being workshopped.
yeah, okay.
Like whoever wrote it,
So yeah.
but it's not the movie is not punk.
Yeah, okay.
Adapting anything
That's
is not
fair.
punk. By the
Or
way,
like
adapting Cyberpunk is not punk. Like
adapting anything is not punk, he says. Okay.
but I
Yeah.
think we can still make something that respects like
Okay.
we don't have to the point is not to try to be punk. Like
Right. Yeah, the point is don't try to be punk.
like
Just be. Right? And
find-
that's the whole thing. Like Redline does not try to be punk.
Yeah.
Redline is just like, we're not trying to be punk, we just want to race fucking cars, space cars.
Yep.
Like that's all it is.
And Hackers was clearly trying to be punk. Like
let me
was not trying to be punk at all.
Yeah, okay.
But it had a blowjob on screen. And he took over his school's radio network and locked himself up.
So did Swordfish.
Yeah, but Swordfish was trying to sell the aesthetic. Swordfish was like, look how sexy it is when you have money. Look at this, look at that. Like it was making a big deal out of John Travolta. Like it was making a big deal out of Hugh Jackman's character. Like it was making a big deal out of these characters. It was making it, like you said, it was making a big deal out of Hail Berry and how sexual she is. Like it was selling sunglasses before the Matrix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, it came out after the first Matrix movie, but like, yes, I understand it. It's selling. Yeah, no, first Matrix was 1998. Swordfish was 2001, I believe.
Then it is not punk at all. Like at that point, it is riding.
The first Matrix. I mean, I would say the first Matrix is punk.
It's too composed. It's too composed.
Is it?
Yep. Oh yeah. That movie is meticulous. That movie is meticulous.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it is. It is meticulous.
Gloriously
it feels like
so.
there are so many.
It
feels like there are so many disqualifiers for Punk.
Yeah.
I gotta ask because I am genuinely curious to hear your thoughts on this. And regardless of how I feel about it, I do feel like there is relevance to bringing up Ahsoka when talking about Cyberpunk.
Okay.
I see. Like I couldn't finish Ahsoka. Like I got 3.5 episodes in, and I couldn't deal with just what I came to understand and accept about it is that if you don't watch it as something for like if you don't watch it for the same reasons that you would watch Andor or Rogue One, right, which are very different narrative vehicles kind of thing, and you watch it as a kids show, a show that is designed to entertain younger audiences, I think it's probably phenomenal, right? Like it's probably right on the money and does everything it sets out to do and wants to do. But the problem is that again, like the dialogue, it's so on the nose. There are just absolutely ridiculous things. Like I am sorry,
I can tell you what the issue is.
Generals in an army do not chase down fleeing
let's put
bad
that aside.
guys.
Let's put all that aside for a second because I think that part of the problem with Ahsoka is that they are writing to a theme and they're writing to a tone. They had such critical success with Andor that they wanted that again. And the thing about Ahsoka is that she is actually Ahsoka as a character is Punk.
And I adore Rosario Dawson. But
everything that Ahsoka had done up until then was about Ahsoka Tano.
And I haven't seen Clone Wars, so like I don't know her character as well as like other people in the fandom would.
They come in groups at the end, right? They do batches of episodes around a theme. There's 3 or 4 episodes at the end of season 5. Whatever the finale, the 4 episodes I think of season 5.
Yeah.
That finale
is just incredible.
It is Cyberpunk. And Ahsoka Tano comes to the realization that the Jedi Order is screwed and she pieces out.
Right.
And it's like, wow. And then in Rebels, she's trying to screw with the Empire. You don't know if she's a Jedi or what. You just know that she is not going to tolerate this after all the hard work that she put into. She's going to take them down. And what you don't know, what she doesn't know, is that Anakin Skywalker, her mentor, is Darth Vader. She doesn't know.
Right.
She is working to take this down without knowing what she's getting herself into, and that's powerful. So she is on a one-way woman. She has to confront this, and she does. And she's
great character.
And as soon as she does, she's like, doesn't she just gets more mad. She hears that, she's like, how dare you, of all people? How dare you, sir? And he's like, are you ready to turn? And she's like, not today. She's like, no, but I'm ready to kick your ass. And he's like, this anger is not becoming of a Jedi, Ahsoka. And that's when she says the most famous line of her career, which is, I am no Jedi. And you're like, damn!
That's clearly that's clearly Punk. Right?
So Punk.
And
and you're like,
but this wasn't in the series Ahsoka.
And it's
right?
and the beautiful thing about that is you don't get to use that against her. She took it off the table. She's not gonna feel bad for feeling this way, she's just gonna use it. But she's not gonna turn and using it because she found her own way. You are so fucked, Anakin.
Honestly, it's so honoring her authentic self. I would almost say it's more metal than Punk, though.
It's both. It gets to be both. You can have both.
It's both. And so and this is the thing about Ahsoka, right? The series, not the character. The series. So when I'm talking about Ahsoka, I do feel like I should clarify this because I'm talking about the Disney Plus series Ahsoka.
She was motivated.
Not
she
the
had
character.
A strong line of action. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
And then they used her to play the Jedi the wise Jedi. They used her to push wisdom. They used her to push theme, which isn't.
Onto
It's not Ahsoka.
is that Fennec? No, it's not Fennec, right?
No. You're
Who's
talking
who's
about
her
Sabine Wren.
Sabine?
Uh,
Yeah.
but Sabine
And
too
like
was reacting. It was a largely reactive show. They were just Sabine like should have started with like I'm gonna find Ezra no matter what.
Sabine was Ahsoka's apprentice.
Yes. Yes.
Who was the Sith girl
What's
apprentice?
the name of the Sith apprentice, honey? The girl? No, Evan says Shanti. I don't think that's right though. Shanti is another Jedi. Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe you know what was this? No, this was definitely Ahsoka because I never saw the conclusion to this. They're looking for Admiral Thrawn
They're looking
or
for Thrawn and
whatever.
they're looking for Ezra
Right.
Bridger.
And Ahsoka is looking for Ezra. Or is it
Shin
Sabine is
Hati
looking
is
for
her
Ezra?
name. Shin Hati.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But here's the point. Like
Yeah.
here's the point. Like that's the trap that you fall into when you start writing for a tone and you start writing for a theme, which is what because they wanted to sum up all these things, and deliver.
And the dialogue gets so on the nose, and I'm just like, why are you telling me this stuff?
Because they're
like.
trying to create moments. They're doing all the things that we talk about. Like
Well, but this is what I was saying. I think like.
And because
to
they
me,
fell,
I
because they
think
fell in love with Andor, which is understandable. Like Tony really,
well, Andor is a masterpiece, and I cannot wait for the second season. I really hope it's as good as the first season.
and the casting is so good. I am so excited for more Stellan Skarsgård. Can I tell you my personal hope?
I adore him.
Can I tell
Oh
you?
my god!
Can I tell you my personal hope for this character? And Evan will vouch for this.
You've told me this before. Actually, it's one of the generals
General Kraken.
that I don't.
He's got to be General Kraken.
Yeah.
He looks like General Kraken. Look up General Kraken on your computer and tell me it's not him. Like, why are you baiting the hook like this, Filoni? Give me Kraken. And you're right. It could be a code name. It could be anything.
In Outlaws?
No. Probably. No, he's not an Out. He is. I haven't played Outlaws. General Kraken. Just look up General Kraken, Star Wars game.
I looked up General Kraken, and the results I got was a super tactical droid.
Oh, come on.
That served the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars.
Is it McCracken?
That's that. Yeah, that's what I got when I looked it up.
General Kraken, Star Wars. C-R-A-C-K.
Oh, there's C-R-A-C-K. Okay, I spelt it like, Kraken.
Yep.
Release the Kraken.
Yeah, no.
Okay, yes, he looks just like him. Yes. looks just like him. Absolutely looks just like him.
So the thing with that I would love to see Cyberpunk the movie do is bring the punk back and let a bunch of kids just start taking down corporations. Like and the thing that I get away from Deadpool is that, and this is my pitch, like you have a net hacker, you have someone who is, if you take that editing aesthetic that you get in Deadpool, you take that ability to just break story, and you let this person hack their way into all these important places to the point where they start controlling things and screwing with bad guys and making a general nuisance, like you could at that point.
This is Avalanche.
Yeah, and you have, like, at that point, you get the paramilitary stuff. They're going to be like, not today, you little shit. Like, they're just going to call in the government. They're going to start spending money on private armies. They're going to, because they can't.
This is what you're talking about. This is Avalanche from Final Fantasy VII, right? Like, this is what we're talking about.
Yes.
This is what it's Avalanche. It's from Final Fantasy VII. This is what it is.
And Final Fantasy VII is hugely cyberpunk inspired. Hugely cyberpunk inspired. Obviously, Shinra is an evil corporation. Like, that's the whole thing.
Okay.
Like, to the point where they're like, no, we're sending out the entire army to get rid of these kids because these kids are getting headlines. They're making news. Like,
or just drop a plate on 50,000 people, kind of thing.
Totally, just to end it.
Yeah.
Like, so you get that corporate oligarchy and the corporate lack of like care for
the corporate, and it's like so like there's. Again, all of these
but
kind
it's because
of
they got pushed to the brink. It's because these kids are not playing games. Like, and they get
Technocracy. That's the word I'm looking for.
yes,
Technocracy.
yes,
Yeah, where it's like well, it's also like there's Star Citizen in this too, where it's like corporations buying planets kind of thing.
yes. Although Star Citizen
Yeah,
is more of that, people live in the Empire. There is an element of noirish,
right.
like, and I don't.
It's not quite dystopian.
It's not quite
It's
dystopian, but people are also settled.
frontier.
People are settled
Right.
into it.
Yeah, it's frontier. It's
And
not
if you're
it's not
not,
a
and if you're not
dystopia,
settled
but
into it, you find a place to not be settled into it. You find a way. You go build you go to an undiscovered system and you build your fortune. You try and find
but
your way.
what the parallel I draw here is kind of like, also like in Andor with and I'm blanking on what the name of the the planet, but it's really just one settlement on the planet is, but where Cassian Andor's mother, adoptive mother is living, and then
The
eventually
red brick place. The red
passes
brick
the
place.
the red brick place, right? Where like what do they talk about, right? It's a company town, right? It's like
Yes.
the
Yes.
laws are run by the business. Yes, it's empire jurisdiction, but at least in the beginning of the season, like the empire just kind of fucks off and lets the company run it as the
So
company
the
sees
point of
fit.
having
You know,
Russian culture, Russian mega corporations and oligarchs run things, the point of having Japan be a superpower, the point of having the Americas be superpowers is that you get corporate culture as national culture. You
right?
get the obliteration of other forms of culture, and you get kids who are just going to be like, "We're going to have a rock and roll show. You can't stop us!" Like, like,
Yeah.
like.
It's like the antithesis to utilitarianism kind of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you have things to be punk in the face of. Like, you have things to be like, I'm gonna go take over a subway station and put on a rock show. Try and stop me. Like, and you do it, and you succeed, and you wind up needing armed guards to fight off corporate while you run your rock and roll show, and you teach.
That's the whole thing. It has the kind of potential that I think like Star Citizen has, where it's like, well, like I don't care that people are invading. I want to go, farm boxes.
Yeah,
Like
yes,
kind of thing.
yeah.
I want to go race my ship,
I want to
kind
do
of
what
thing.
I want to
You
do.
know?
I don't care that this corporation
Right.
is in my way. Like, like, and that is what gets beat out of people in the noir. That's what we need. And by the way, by all means, like, hire Ridley Scott's DP to light the freaking movie. I think it's a great idea. Like, but you also need lots of invasive neon lighting. You also need.
Okay. So like, what if the character in Cyberpunk was
It can't
just
be Blade
like,
Runner. It can't be Blade Runner.
I just want to be a 1940s-esque private investigator. Fuck everything else. What if and again, I'm just kind of bullshitting here. But
Well, no,
like
no,
really,
no,
like,
no. Look
can
here.
we make it noir then?
Here's
Kind of
here's
thing.
yes,
I
absolutely.
want to be noir
Yeah.
in
Well. But maybe they're not. But maybe here it is.
in
Yes.
rebellion and in what's the word I'm looking for? In defiance of the
Well,
establishment.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Giving people access to investigative tools in a society where you do not have the authority to hold anyone accountable for anything is punk.
Isn't that like kind of like
Like,
what WikiLeaks does?
yes, absolutely. And by
Yeah.
the way, this is a huge part of what hackers do in Cyberpunk. So being like, if you need help, I'm here to help you. And having this character, let's say, play the role of a detective in a society where because there's an element of Ready Player One to Cyberpunk. There is. You have access to all of
I
culture.
wasn't gonna bring it up because it's a Spielberg movie, but I know
So
it was a book first.
so
But
letting a
like,
character
yeah,
wear a letting them wear an overcoat and a fedora and a pair of glasses and constantly be smoking something, even though and it's fakery, but the fact that they're advertising their business, which is probably illegal. Like
yeah.
the fact that they're advertising their business, which is probably illegal, and they're like, "Fuck you," like, I don't give a shit. Like, that is punk.
For the record, I do feel that like you can't have noir without the neon lights, kind of thing. Like again, it's contrast. It's not saturation, right? It's the contrast of the neon with all of the other shadowy, grungy, dystopic feel
Yes.
that creates the contrast. We just don't turn the saturation like up to 100 on the neon
But the
kind of
point
thing.
the point of the
Like,
point of the
yeah.
detective is that the detective is trying to find people to empower. The detective is looking for cases because people don't even know that they have access to this. People
Where's the line between like punk and true like wanna watch the world burn anarchy kind of thing?
there's a Venn diagram there. It's not a line.
Right. As I say, it doesn't. It feels like there is
There
overlap.
is definitely
Like,
overlap. Is Joker punk? Yeah. Except for the fact that
well, which Joker?
the
Like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker? I would say yes. Like I wouldn't even hesitate to say yes.
I'm gonna
But
say the two most punk Jokers are
Heath Ledger.
Yes and Mark Hamill.
Which Joker was Mark Hamill?
Batman the Animated Series.
The animated series. Oh man, that takes me back. Yeah. Okay, so I would say least punk Joker is Jack Nicholson.
I'm inclined to say that Joaquin Phoenix is not punk.
Really?
He's
I mean, like how? But how do we feel about like I mean, the most memed line in that movie, which is like, yeah, you're gonna say like you think that that's funny. I do, and I'm sick of pretending that it's not, or sick of pretending of people pretending that it's
yeah.
not. That's a massively punk line right there.
I'm gonna go
Like
ahead. His whole thing is a reaction to the fact that he's a comedian who's not. He's a white comedian who's not allowed to be funny anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and say that his entire performance,
because of his neurodivergence kind of thing.
yeah,
Like
people don't get him, and he's just whining about that. Like the punk thing to do in that situation is to say "fuck you," yes, I am funny, and to do funny
isn't
things.
it, isn't that what he does? It just
No,
he does it
no, it's a
violently.
revenge story.
Okay.
He's
All
trying
right. I guess. Yeah.
he's whining. He is
Yeah.
whining. The whole character is whining, which like
Yeah.
which
All right.
there's an
All right.
which to some degree the ick that comes with whining does help fuel the story. And I will also say that the fascists who think that the movie is cool don't realize that he's whining because they are also whining. They don't
Right.
so a
Yeah, yeah,
huge
yeah.
part of the movie's
Th-
appeal.
well, that's a great point to bring up too. And I've actually had big arguments about this, about like the mental health value, if that can be quantified, of Rick and Morty, for example, which I know you don't watch. But are you familiar, I guess, with the premise at
Yeah,
least?
yeah.
Rick, a lot of
But
there
why
are a
don't you
lot of
say in
like
case somebody's not? Why don't you just
Rick,
summarize it?
Rick and Morty was originally conceived of as this outrageous farcical parody to Back to the Future, which is literally Doc and Marty kind of thing. This is where it comes from, except that instead of Doc being amazing, Christopher help, who's the
Lloyd,
actor?
Christopher Lloyd.
Thank you, Christopher Lloyd, and Michael J. Fox. In this, they love each other kind of thing. I mean, it's a grandfather and a grandson, and the grandfather is the most powerful being in the universe who has invented portal travel and can travel the multiverse. But it's all science based. There's no magic in it. Like he's an inventor, and he, if he has a problem, he invents something to fix it, and he goes out. He can do anything he wants. So he goes on adventures with Morty and all this, he's a drunk, right? And he's clearly got incredibly dense and and packed traumas. He's constantly portrayed throughout the series to be the coolest character in the series, right? Like we laugh at his jokes. We all of his action, the actions that he takes are the ones that unequivocally are the ones that work out, kind of thing. Like he's always right, in hindsight. But he's a terrible human being at the character's core. And like the thing about it is the character does actually have that degree of self-awareness.
Yeah, I get it.
Rick hates himself. Like Rick
He's a
even
stand-up
says
comic.
it. Rick
Not a
even
musician.
says it. He is also a musician, but like the character is actually a musician. But there's actually it's actually really funny. It's not the same episode. There is an episode in season 4 where he, he has to go into his best friend's unconscious mind to save his best friend from self-destructing his own mind, kind of thing.
Hmm.
So there's like what was that movie where they shrink down the Incredible Journey? Is that what it was called? Where
Yes,
they like, and
although
then
my
there's a white blood cell at the end of it, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's an element of Incredible Journey in this, but like, so he goes into his best friend's name is Bird Person. He goes into Bird Person's memory, and the first memory is of them at Birding Man Person Palooza. Where like they're just doing drugs, and it's the Burning Man festival of their universe, kind of thing. And they, in order to get to save him and get out of there, like they need to escape using some of Rick's memories. And so like one of the memories that they have to get to that's super cringe is like one of their mutual friends' awful stand-up phase. But then what they get to after that is Rick and Squanchy and Birdman are like, we're just like, we all met at this festival and we're so high we just decided to form a band. So they
Yep.
do go into the stand. They do juxtapose the band and the stand-up back to back in that episode, which is really funny. But there's this one episode where in the previous season's finale, he clones his daughter so that she can go off and live the space adventure life she's wanted without needing to kind of like feel guilty about neglecting her, children and husband, kind of thing. And we don't know who is who. And then at some point in the following season, the Space Beth returns, and then the Space Beth and Domestic Beth are like, start trying to kill each other, because I don't understand this paradox. Maybe I should read up on it, but I always see this trope where like, oh, if there's a clone and someone knows they're the clone, like they'll never have peace until they kill the original because they can't say. I don't understand that trope. I don't understand like the purpose of it or why it exists. But whatever. They start like trying to kill each other. And like the whole resolution of the episode is that they find peace and coexistence and everything's great. And Rick is like, you want to see which of you is actually the real person, which of you is the clone, because he extracted the memory from himself,
Hmm.
and so that he wouldn't remember. And they're like, nah, we're good. Like they've made their peace with it. Like
Hmm.
we're past that bullshit. But so he watches the memory, and he discovers that in his drunkenness, he like took the labels off of the vats and like had his AI play like, 3 card Monty with the clone Beth and the regular Beth. So now he doesn't even know which one is which,
Yep.
kind of thing. And he comes back to reality and he's like, holy shit, I'm a terrible father. Like, and says it with like absolute sincerity, kind of thing. And so the argument that I hear a lot from these people about Rick and Morty is that like, dude, Rick and Morty is a bad show because it's giving bad messaging. It's like it's enabling these incel fascist like, 4chan B trolls, in making them think that like, oh, everyone wants to be Rick because Rick is the coolest guy. Rick is the most powerful being in the universe. And I'm just sitting here like, you guys are idiots. The whole point of the show is to point out that none of that has any value to Rick. Because the one thing that he needs most, which is his dead wife and child, kind of thing, because like the actual Rick in the show he's not living in his original universe. He has moved into a universe where he died, but where his daughter lived. And that's who Beth is. And so like he's miserable. Like there are multiple times throughout the course of the show where he tries to kill himself or he's about to kill himself, kind of things. And it's really like,
It's tough with edgelord stuff because edgelords grab onto it, and
yeah, and fail to realize that it's not about being cool, it's about the cost of being
this
cool.
is an interesting conversation. I think it's pertinent to
Yeah.
cyberpunk as a genre. So one of the things that I have struggled with as a writer,
I would say, based on what you said, that Rick and Morty is unequivocally punk, kind of
I
thing. I
think it
mean, Rick,
probably
Rick,
is.
Rick's big thing is all about just being the Rickest Rick.
The question then becomes it. So authorial intent becomes important to me here, but
Sure.
also unconscious authorial intent, because, for example, some writers that I
But
have,
we'll never know what Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland were thinking, kind
well,
of thing.
sometimes we find out the hard way, don't we? Like I'm going to
Yeah,
confess.
but Roiland was like totally like exonerated from everything, and like the charges were dropped, and the person who had like no proof also like walked it back, and like they still just won't let him come back to the show.
I
I don't know. You might know more details
I
about it
don't.
than I do,
I don't. I know very.
but
I didn't follow it because I wasn't attached
yeah,
to it. But like, for example,
sure,
I was in my youth and in my later years too a huge fan of Warren Ellis. Big fan.
I'm unfamiliar.
Transmetropolitan was one of the comics that I really latched onto the most. And I can tell you right now that Spider Jerusalem is a protagonist that you would effing love.
Okay.
But that edgy stuff, and we always say, oh, it's satire, it's this, it's that. And then he gets caught grooming young women, writers and artists both, with the promise of this and that. And it's like, satire? Are you
Yeah, it's it's
like,
it's it's using the power and the platform he's developed, like,
and he's
for those of you who don't know, I used to be, for over a decade, an international level competitor on Ninja Warrior things. So American Ninja Warrior, I went to Vietnam 3 times to compete on theirs, and I was the assistant head coach at a Ninja Warrior gym in Hamden, Connecticut, which is a couple towns over from where I live now. And the head coach at that gym, just he just got the sentence this past June because he pled guilty to 2 of the 4 counts, 10 years for stooping a 14-year-old multiple times. Across using the reason they were able to convict is because he was using interstate highways,
Mhm.
so it became a federal thing, and like that was how they were able to eventually convict him. So I innately understand
Here's
what
here's
is
when I
being talked about
when
here.
I
Yeah.
saw Avengers, I loved it, but there were things that pinged me in a bad way, things that I knew were wrong.
Are we talking about the Joss Whedon
The
Avengers?
first one, yes. There were
Okay, yeah.
things we've talked, for example, about the Chris Hemsworth line of Loki was adopted. There's things that
Yes,
that
yes, yes,
that
yes.
struck me as weak in craft and weak in character, and I was like,
Okay.
and I was like, because I don't necessarily create a huge division between those things. I think the relentless pursuit of craft is a sign of character. And I know you agree with me on that because I see you doing it all the time as a matter of character. Like, so
You mean like authorial character?
I mean that a show person is a show person. Be the best show person you can. Like, and any opportunity to do that, any somebody comes to you with something that's patently right, you don't defend your perspective. You open up.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
like
It's being open
but
minded.
even
It's
that,
like, yeah,
but even that, Greg, means being on the cutting edge of your own self development. You can't afford to wait for someone to come to you with that. You need to give the actor the thing they need the first time, which I know you believe. I've seen you rip up your own
yeah,
work in the name of this. So like
yeah.
you are always working on yourself so that you don't have to be told those things. And it's a snowball of self development that eventually
The
becomes.
thing also, we do inevitably need someone external to kind of shine a light on something for
Sometimes
us.
that's
Kind
true,
of.
but like you start.
It inevitably is true at some point in everyone's life.
Absolutely,
Kind of thing.
but you
Yeah.
start seeing your blind spots, don't you? And then you start.
Right, because a lot of it is like, and I have this line in my movie. Word for word is like, you don't know what you don't know,
But then
kind
you
of thing.
start getting a whiff of it, and you start to go.
Yeah.
And we've had conversations where you've said something to me, and you've said, you know what, this is probably one of those things. You see what I'm saying? Where I'm missing this, aren't I? Like, and that ability
Yeah.
to see yourself expands the more you work on it to the point where you're like, I'm seeing this in the news. I'm seeing this piece of feminist, let's say modern feminist theory, or I'm seeing this part of critical race theory. And I have this reaction to it, and this is probably one of those things. Like, where I need to step back. And so I'm not going to make it some black person's job to come in and educate me about this crap. I'm going to go find out how wrong I am right now. Like,
Oh, you're talking about it in that.
like,
Okay, I was thinking you were going in the reverse route of that, which is where you start being able to identify toxicities externally.
Oh, I see. Well,
But
but here's my
yeah,
point.
but no, I mean, like, what you're saying is all absolutely also
Some of
valid,
these
of course.
mistakes that we see, like maybe I got ick from some things that Warren Ellis had written, and had I had the brain that I have now, I would have said that's a sign that he hasn't done this work.
Oh,
That's a sign that he hasn't done
okay.
that work. Like,
I I actually I understand the exact right like analogy to make here, which is that for I mean I have been in love with stand-up comedy for my whole life, kind of thing. I don't, I don't what's the word? I don't watch it just as much as I used to. Um but like I was a huge Carlos Mencia fan when I was younger. Gabriel Iglesias, like my favorite stand-up comic of all time, kind of thing. But it's really interesting because my favorite stand up like single special, not comedian, just like special. And even still, even though like, I'll own that this is like it's probably not really great of me to still say that it's my favorite of all time, but it's Anthony Jeselnik's Caligula, which within the first 5 minutes of the special, he says to the audience, just to give you a heads up, that was the first of 3 rape jokes I will tell tonight, kind of thing.
yep.
And the thing is, like, it is a stand up from I want to say it's like 2006, 2008, something like that. Not within the last 10 years, I believe. And I grew up with this kind of mentality that like either everything is funny or nothing is. Because there is I do think that there is a philosophical argument to make on behalf of that statement. But I think there are more philosophical arguments to make against that statement. And the thing is there are things which shouldn't be joked about. And rape is one of them.
Well, I also think that it's about the joke that you're telling. Like, I think it's great to tell jokes about toxic masculinity. I think I think it's possible to
Right. If you're calling attention to bad behavior
punch up.
for what it is.
If it's a power relationship, if you're punching up in that power relationship, I think it is very, very feasible to tell really good jokes about rapists.
Yeah, and this is the problem is that the jokes I do remember him telling in that stand up are a majority of like punching down.
And that's not good comedy. That's never good comedy. And he just didn't see that. He didn't.
Well, the thing is that his execution is like 100 out of 100.
And
Like you want to talk about someone who understands screw the idea. Execution is what matters. In that stand up, in that special at least, his execution is as good as I've ever seen any execution
and
anywhere.
what I will say about Joss Whedon in that
Yeah.
same scenario is that you can make an argument that his execution on Avengers is really strong, but I have these points where I'm like, it's his execution that clues me into what he didn't know, what he wasn't doing,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's his execution that tells me I. So in a certain sense, there's 2 issues that I have here. Number one, your execution will improve if you work on yourself. It will. It will. It will. It will. Like you will eliminate the things that keep you making these mistakes and have these blind spots,
Yeah.
and you'll do things more unilaterally well. You will. Secondly,
I agree with that.
when we bow to these flaws that we have that are maybe institutional, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they are,
Or like when we're stubborn, when we're obstinate about
or
them.
even just blind, or even just not seeing the problem. Even when
Well,
we replicate these results in that moment unconsciously, we are.
it's one thing it's one thing to be blind. It's another thing to be disregarding
Let
when
me finish
someone
the
tries to
sentence.
shine.
Let me finish the
Yeah, sorry,
sentence.
go ahead.
When we do these things and we make these mistakes, even if they are honest mistakes, we are including a passive observation about how the world is or how things work in our story. We are not exclusively telling the story of the action in that moment because we have unconsciously pinned a thought about how the world works
Yes.
to that board. And that observation, whether or not we meant to put it in there, is now something we are saying about how the world works. So I'm not blaming the person who didn't know better, although I think Joss Whedon did, and I'm finding more and more, Greg, that people know better more than they say. Like,
So
like,
I I believe in self accountability. I am absolutely a believer in self accountability. So I feel like at this point I need to put myself on the chopping block here. Uh, the very first book I ever wrote, which was in the same universe as the high budget streaming video on demand limited series that I did development for last year.
It's just how we met.
Which is how we met. Um, I wrote it in 2008, and I was a much younger man. I was 22. 22? That sounds right. 21. 21 22. And it was, look, I have always had a knack for world building, and storytelling. I haven't always been a good writer, but I invented a sport. I was very heavily influenced by Harry Potter, and I hated Quidditch. I thought that Quidditch was like the dumbest sport because like, what is the point of having a snitch? Or what is the point of having chasers and a quaffle if just whoever catches the snitch wins the game? I don't. This is not.
Why
the
is
sport.
there more than one end game in this game?
Right. Exactly.
What game are you
Exactly.
playing?
Why is it? What? Yeah. What game are you playing? So I invented a game, a sport. I think it's a really nifty sport. All things being equal, I would have to explain like the physics of the world and so I'm not going to get into that. But so of course, and I was thinking, it was like, what do we do before every sporting event? Well, we sing the national anthem. Like, I don't know if that's the case worldwide. I don't know if in Korea they play the Korean national anthem before soccer match. I don't know if they do that.
Yeah. North Korea, I guarantee.
But in America, well, yeah, for sure. Russia, I'm sure as well. But I didn't know, so I was just like, you know what? Let's have an anthem at the beginning of this match. And it was just like, oh, this anthem music. Like, how am I supposed to write this? And what I ended up writing, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. Please don't judge me too hard. Again, this is like,
you're owning this. Look, Greg, accents
16 years ago,
louder than words.
I wrote.
Yeah, this is good.
I wrote that I think it was a live band or orchestra or whatever with magically essentially amplified music, but there was no words to this anthem. It was just it was instrumental. And so what did everyone do? Instead of singing along, they hummed along. And our main character, this is very much this was an isekai story. So the character, it's a book, so I can get away with it, right? Character runs away from home and wakes up in this new world. But he's from, America. And he turns to our heroine and asks her, like, why are there no words? Word for word, she says, like, words are great for poetry, but music should be about the sounds and the music. Something really preachy and gross and on the nose and just awful writing. Awful writing. And so, but the only thing I will say in my defense is that I didn't know better. I was, I had only been writing at that point in my life for 5-6 years, something like that.
This is I was the still thing that you were airing.
I was an immature writer. Yeah, no, it was a commentary on how stupid it is for people to just talk about how amazing lyrics are in music. Because I for so long,
I thought you were gonna come out as like, I thought this was gonna. No, I thought you were gonna out yourself as like somebody who did something particularly abusive to the reader.
Oh. No.
I thought I was waiting.
My relationship with the audience has always been very martyristic, which is like I just want to make my living doing this, so I just need to make the audience happy so that they'll pay money to keep me doing this. That has always been my attitude.
And even now, one of the things I think that you're learning now is learning to respect and love yourself gives you more to give. That's
well, that what it we're kind of getting into craft of writing a little bit here, which I think is fine.
Cyberpunk is all based on literature. In case anyone isn't aware, this is all William Gibson invented this. And if you want to find out, William Gibson is a literary writer. You can either read Neuromancer to find that out, or you can watch Johnny Mnemonic.
So what you just said is like absolutely correct. And so if there are any aspiring writers out there and you've actually listened all the way through to this point and you're hearing this, take away, and you only take away one thing from this podcast, what Tennyson just said, make that be the thing you take away, where it's like being the authentic self is how you become a better writer. It's so true. And I can tell you why. I actually I realized why this was so important. It's because if you try, and this is also like you and I talked a lot about like grounding narrative in a geographic location. We were talking about this with like Good Will Hunting and The Instigators and my movie that I'm doing right now. Like actually not just being vague about the setting, but being very definitive and like anchoring it in a very specific like geographic location. And it's because when you aren't specific with intent, it starts being a commentary on objective truth. And most people can't have that discussion.
And it's not your business to have it as a
more
writer.
people.
It's not even your business to have that
Right.
writer.
And it's not right. It's not our business to force the audience to have that discussion. And this is the thing. Like if you start trying to make observational truths, even in literature, and I'll even say it, even in literature, you start preaching. You are preaching the word of God.
Greg, I'm going to tell you, this brings it right back to the conversation I had with Liz Ransdell, who's another writer, somebody I absolutely encourage you to follow.
I just want to finish the thought, and then it's all you. And no one wants to hear that shit.
This is the problem.
No one wants to read it.
Yep.
No one wants to see it.
Yep.
Because we already get it.
Yep.
From every single angle.
Yes.
We are inundated with external influences attempting to indoctrinate us.
Yes.
That is literally why I will not watch the news, why I will not read newspapers, because that is what the news has turned into. There is bias. You know, the only news I will read comes from like the AP kind of thing.
This is
and
great stuff, Greg.
And it's super important because this also, and to me, this is no small coincidence. There's a direct correlation between the excellence of character intent and the excellence of authorial intent, which is the author needs to be pursuing the author's goals to the best of the author's ability. But those goals need to be something that the author actually has some control over. So, AKA nothing external, AKA you can't control what the audience is going to think.
Yep.
And so like what is my goal with the movie I'm writing? My goal is that this movie is essentially a huge apology. Right? It's an apology from me on behalf of like all the people in the world who have hurt people they loved unintentionally. Just, again, being the best people that they can be, they just didn't know any better, right? And, like, that didn't mean that they weren't good people. They are good people. I think everyone on the planet is a good person at their core, right? And so the asterisk to that is, you know, like, that doesn't mean there are no bad actions, and, of course, people have to be held responsible for their bad actions, of course. But, like, I'm trying to apologize for the things I have done in the past, and I'm trying to show other people that it is okay to own those things, right? Like, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to embrace the things you need to live your best life without hurting others. And I'm not sending a message.
Yeah.
Right? I'm showing other characters doing that and having it work out for them, right? And that's part of the conversation. You know, when we were talking about civilization, right? How I was like, you can show people what not to do. Like, I'm not going to say that's not valid. That it is valid. You can show people what not to do. That's fine. But it's more effective to give people an option that works.
And to let characters try to achieve their goals in good faith. Like, it's not about
Yes.
It's not about
in good faith. That's, oh my God, I say that That's my key takeaway, right? Like that, those exact words, in good faith. Because whenever I have friends that come to me for life advice, right? And they'll ask me, and I'll be like, look, I can tell you what the answer to this is,
Yeah.
but it won't help you unless you're really willing to pursue the thing I'm going to advise you in good faith, right? You don't have to believe that I'm right? But you just have to give it a shot and put aside doubt.
Yep.
And if it doesn't work, that's okay, right? Like we'll find a different way. Because I also am firmly a believer that like there are actually no problems that cannot be solved. It doesn't mean that that any solution, is easy or simple. Sometimes like they're like again, some problems are so great that they are practically impossible to solve. But that doesn't mean that they are,
Absolutely impossible to solve.
absolutely impossible to solve. Correct. And so, and this is the thing, we are a culture and a society, and I don't just mean America, I mean all, the entire world, that as technology has improved, we have forgotten that ease does not equate right. And we're just looking for the easiest life now, which for a very long time, I totally understand why that's the headspace. Because, for all of human history up until, well, I mean, even still, I mean, life is hard, dude. Like it's hard to live in this world.
Yeah.
It's the easiest we've ever had it, undeniably. Like, and anyone who wants to argue with me for that, I will be happy to prove you wrong. But like, it's no, this is the easiest we've ever had it in human history, but we are still obsessed with living easy lives rather than good lives. And my favorite kind of it is a meme, but it doesn't originate from a meme. It's this cycle of human civilization, which is like, weak men create hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. And right now we're in the whole weak men create hard times part of that cycle. And I see a lot of like I'm not a historian. There are plenty of people who know far more about history than I do. Um, but it seems very obvious to me that like we are in a depression-esque part of the cycle right now. I mean, you look at like from call it like pre World War One through now, right? Like pre World War One was a time of surplus. Now it was a much shittier time of surplus, to be fair, right? Like quality of life was significantly lower, but that is in turn what led to the Great Depression. And the Great Depression was really hard times that created really strong like men and leaders who carried us through World War II. And then the 50s and the 60s were like the greatest era of surplus and not cornucopia, but like you know what I'm saying. It's just like
Plenty.
you like yeah, that we've seen in human history, and then that created some really weak leaders, and they're all in Congress now. Kind of thing. Um, and so we are in the hard times right now. I think that we will find our way out of them, and there will be good times again. But and this is the key thing. This is what I see. I have no interest in living a life of ease and complacency for myself, just so that I don't have to worry about things, right? Um, I have no interest. Like I am. I tell people I'm like basically financially independent. The truth is, the better way of saying it is I'm essentially retired,
Hmm.
kind of thing. I work because I choose to, not because I have to. And I work because I look. I like to travel. I like to see beautiful places. I like to decompress and not have responsibilities. But I wouldn't want to do that every day for the rest of my life. That's just who would want to do that every day for the rest of your life? I mean, do you not think you would you wouldn't get bored? Everyone would get bored. I don't know. It's the people who like profess to want that kind of life more than anyone else that would get bored after like 2 weeks. Really, like they would just like be like, okay, I need human interaction. Like and it blows my mind, right? Build a better tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree with
That
that.
that doesn't mean you can't enjoy today.
Yeah.
And this is like a duality thing. I'm a big believer in duality. Anytime, all right, I'm not going to say anytime. 99% of the time, someone pitches a choice, right? Like it's like you can either, invest in yourself so you can be happy tomorrow or you can be happy today. I'm like, bullshit. I choose both.
Yeah.
It's outrageous to me.
Comes down to
That
the difference
people
between pain and suffering. It comes down to the difference between pain and suffering, which so many
the
people.
way well,
Yeah.
and in stunts, what we say it's the difference between pain and injury, right?
Yeah.
Like, look, we all know if you're a stunt performer, and I am, there's pain involved in working in stunts. Things hurt.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck. Like, dude, the first stunt I ever did on camera in my life was a flatback, which I'll explain it, but I'm sure I don't need to. It's exactly what it sounds like.
You fall on your back.
You fall
presumably from a height.
flat. Yeah. So in this particular stunt, we were shooting a I don't really talk to him anymore, but like this guy, he wanted to be and he is actually extremely good at it. His name is Dave Lavalley. Lavallee, I don't actually know how to say it, but he very much aspires to be a fight choreographer. He's a great stunt performer. He is a wonderfully talented martial artist. I really like the guy. But so we were filming like a little action short for him at a baseball field. And my action was I was just a goon charging the protagonist with my spiky baseball bat, and protagonist has a spiky baseball bat. And I was supposed to charge him all, like, war cry. And as I get to him, he's on a knee and he like turns and gut checks me with like the end of his bat. And I double over. And as I double over, he stands up and he sweeps the leg with his bat. And I go flying up into the air and he windmills it and spikes me into the ground.
Oh.
So not only,
hang on one sec. We're having some kind of emergency. I'm going to be right back. Hang on one sec.
Sure, I have to throw out some stuff anyway. Let's put a pause. Oh, I'm glad to see you're already back. I guess it wasn't too bad. Hopefully, wasn't too bad. Did I mute you? Did I mute myself?
No, I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
So someone next door hacked one of the Bluetooth speakers in our house, and Evan was turn it off. That's what happened. So.
Okay, so
accidentally
something that needed to be addressed, but not
no. I didn't, but I didn't know what it was. I just saw.
Fair.
Yeah.
So I had to do this. Not only did I have to flatback, I had to self-motivate, and I had to jump, right? Because, like, let's be fair. Physics in the real world, you don't sweep someone's leg and they go flying 6 feet in the air.
Correct.
Kind of. That's just not what happens in real life. So I had to, like, in the action of the timing, swing my leg like he swept it, and then like pogo off my plant leg and get myself parallel to the ground at like chest height
Yeah.
so that he had enough time to bring the baseball bat around and make contact and spike me into the ground
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had to do it 12 times. We had to do 12 takes. The first time I did it, I screwed it up, and as I was going to the ground, I cocked my shoulder a little bit to try and like brace,
Oh.
and I quickly learned, nope, nope, don't do that. Just land flat on your back.
Yep. Use as much of your surface area as you can.
Yep. You have to let the wind get knocked out of you. And look, I was wearing full pads. I was fully padded up. I had my gator back on and everything. Dude, it sucks. It hurts so much. I did another flat back in Atlanta, again, just like another impromptu thing where there was I was fighting a guy. I had a karambit. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like the knife with the ring on it, welded into
Okay.
it's all part of the same construction.
Yeah.
And so like you can wear it and like you can spin it around your finger.
Yeah.
It's called a karambit. I had a karambit and I was just like a hand-to-hand combat scene with this guy and like I swing and I miss and he's supposed to like, judo slam me into the ground, but we did it a couple times and I was coming through like the side of the frame. It wasn't really like, so I told him one time, I was like, all right, so like you have a free hand here and we're like cutting into this, just like give me a little bit of like choke slam, like help, like lift me as like you do the throw a little bit, because I'll jump a little bit so we can get more height.
Yeah.
Dude, I was like head height parallel to the ground, and I hit the ground so hard that it actually dazed me for a split second. And like, because I was supposed to, when I hit the ground, I was supposed to like swing or like swipe at his ankles with the karambit. And so I hit the ground and I was like, oh shit. And then I swiped and they cut it. And the guy behind the camera looks at me. He's like, dude, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I know I fucked it up. I didn't swipe right away. He's like, dude, no, it looked amazing. It looked like that really fucking hurt. And that like you swiped at him out of desperation. I'm like, okay, that wasn't acting.
They used the cut though. They used the take.
I'm fine. Just let me just get like 5 minutes, guys. I just need like 5 minutes. Let me just lie here for like 5 minutes, kind of thing. But like that's the whole point though. Like that's not injured. It hurts.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But it's not injury. Like I walked away from
You're
it.
still gonna
I
have a
woke
good
up
day
the
on
next
set.
day.
You're not gonna let that interfere with all the other
Exactly.
experiences that you have that day.
And it doesn't force me to leave set, right? Like, I'm fine at the end of the day. And it's this whole thing is like people, and everyone I've talked to agrees with this today. There's so much being uncomfortable is just so distasteful these days. And it blows my mind. Like, look, capitalism has its problems. I'm not saying that it doesn't have its problems. But really, like, we as human beings are capable of so much. We are, we can do so many amazing things. And all it takes is just a willingness to, on occasion, step out of your comfort zone. That's all it takes. And
there's a deep philosophical.
People are so obstinate about it.
I've told you about the con artist who taught me Jeet Kune Do. Marcus was a big believer in rites of passage. Okay. Because Marcus believed that once you have survived a life and death experience, once you have been subjected to something that can reasonably take your life, and you persevere and you find a way through that experience, there is a transition that happens neurologically where you recontextualize. Once you learn that you can trust yourself to live, it recontextualizes all the dumb crap that you hide from, because you trust yourself to live. So you don't need to worry about all the things that you're worried about maybe taking that life from you anymore, because you trust yourself to live. So,
and I would like to even expand on that a little bit, because I think when people hear like life and death situations, they think physically. It's not just physically. I have had physical life and death experiences, near life and death experiences. None of them did for me what like the emotional ones did for me.
Hmm.
Like in 2000, and I have no shame in talking about this anymore, but it's like in 2001, I had a 6 month period where every single night was a war with myself as to like, is tonight the night I kill myself? 6 months straight,
Well, that is a
essentially.
life and death experience. That is a very tangible.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's an emotional one,
yeah,
right? Because
it
it's like
wasn't
I don't find
external.
myself.
Yeah.
Right. No, as a good example of like a physical one that I found myself in was like I was at Yosemite in 2001. This was unrelated to what I just said. But I was at Yosemite in 2001 and I was just like hiking around like the base of El Cap. But I'd never been there before and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know where I was going and I ended up on a sheer face of slab 400 feet above the forest floor with a backpack and my hiking shoes, wondering how the hell I let it get to this point. No further way down. If I tried to go down any further, I would have died for sure. Because I could explain it in great detail, but that's not necessary.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having to climb. I ended up having to free solo back up like 300 feet without chalk, without climbing shoes, with a backpack. And there, I had this moment. I'll just tell the story really quickly. You know, sometimes if like, you're going through a tight space or you're doing something, whatever, you get to a point where like you're able to get by it or get through it in one direction, but
Yes.
going back
Yes.
is like
A very different experience.
really unfriendly
Yep.
kind of
Yep.
thing. So it's like, this happens like, all the time with like kids putting their fingers through like holes in fences and stuff like
Or
that, or
climbing
a
a
ring
tree, or climbing
maybe.
a tree, or any number of things. Like,
Or climbing a tree. You can get up, but you can't get down. Like, or I just saw this story about this guy, I guess, who died in a cave. Like, he was spelunking and he was like trying to navigate this really narrow corridor and got wedged, but couldn't back up because the physics, allowed him to go forward but not backward, kind of thing. And I found myself in that situation where I had crossed a point going down that I was like, this was a little harder than I thought it would be. I wonder if I'm in the right spot. And then needing to do it again going back up, now that I don't have gravity helping me, now that I have gravity fighting me. I had this, so I had my backpack on and I have mesh holders for like water bottles in the sides. And I had a, in turning around initially, I had lost one of the bottles and watched it hit this like, I don't know, 12 by 3 foot ledge, like the size of a big couch, 90 feet below me, and just, like explode like a bomb kind of thing. Not like crack and glug glug glug. I mean like literally explode like a fucking bomb. And I was like, oh, so if I fall, that's just gonna be my body,
yep.
kind of thing.
Yep.
And so now I'm like another 100 feet higher because I've been climbing back up and I'm trying to like finagle. I think I have found the only workable way I can actually make this move, which involves me like my foot is like up here on a ledge and I have to get my knee like axially over my ankle so that I can pistol squat up on it, kind of thing. And I think I've found a way to actually position my hips so that I can do that. But so like I'm finagling around, the other water bottle pops out. But I don't want to like turn and look because I am in a little bit of this precarious position, way the hell up kind of thing. And so, but I go quiet and I listen for it. So I'm trying to listen to hear the water bottle, and I never hear it land.
Yep.
And believe me when I tell you, that is the most disconcerting thing I have ever experienced in my life. That, bar none. The thought that it missed the ledge.
Yep.
And just went into the abyss beyond it, and I couldn't hear it land. And I had this moment where like I have my forearm pressed into the wall, I have my palm like wedged in. I have the heel of my hand on this like little dimple. It's a contour,
Yeah.
right? Because like if I put my hand in straight, it'll slip because like I don't have it. But if I flip my hand and I chicken wing it and I'm doing it like this, the contour of the heel of my hand actually like it fits in there like a puzzle piece. So as long as like I can iron cross between these 2 points, I can actually raise my hip level, find a little piece of crack to wedge the toe of my shoe in, and shove my knee over my ankle on my right side high up. And I have this thought that's like, okay, I'm fine right now. And in 15 seconds, I could just be dead. like
Yep.
kind of thing. Like it's
Yep.
literally 15 seconds
Yep.
kind of thing. I could just not be here anymore.
Yep.
And that experience did not affect me like the 6 months later that year did. I mean, I survived it quite
Yeah.
clearly. Thank you, free soloing. Because I actually, this is why I credit free soloing with saving my life, because I had been free soloing for a couple years at that point. I started free soloing during COVID, and it saved my life, which is like the most ironic thing is people, not anytime, a lot of times when I tell people I used to free solo, they're like, oh my God, that's so dangerous. Are you nuts? Are you an adrenaline junkie? And it's, no, it's meditative. It's not about physical difficulty. It's about emotional excellence, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, it legitimately saved my life. And of course, I got back down to my car and I went into shock for 3 hours because of the adrenaline fatigue and all that and everything. And I had to reassess my life. But the whole idea of like truly being able to overcome anything, that didn't come until I made Red Valley. And that was Red Valley is essentially the onset of Red Valley was the end of like that 6 month period at 2021. It was a 6 to 7 month period where, the wonderful, well, she was wonderful back then person who was my pre-production coordinator was like loved the script. I told her that like I definitely could see you in this part and she wanted to be in it, and she just like without me needing to like pull teeth or like harangue her or bug her, just started cold emailing, and she was brilliant with her networking kind of thing. She started cold emailing everyone in Kansas City, and like 2 weeks later we had an entire crew.
That's amazing. That's really
And
great.
that was it for me, because it was like, and this is also like kind of the thing, it's like we have to be willing to let people help us.
Yes.
Right? We should embrace people wanting to help us.
Yes.
We shouldn't need to feel like we have, and this is the whole thing. Why are we so obsessed with doing everything on our own? Just because we need to be able to do things on our own, and we should be able to do things on our own, that doesn't mean we have to do things on our own. And like, sometimes we need that.
Yeah.
And embrace it. Let's build something incredible as a team, right? Let's like, why do we don't need to do it with this sense of individualism and ego? Like, it's not one or the other. You can live your best life and also enable other people to live their best lives at the same time.
In fact, it's probably going to help you do it. And
Yes,
so
you just need to be okay stepping out of the comfort zone
let's
a
bring it
little
back.
bit.
Let's bring it back to Cyberpunk.
Yeah, well, how did we even get on this? We were
So
talking about
I don't even remember.
Cyberpunk.
But here's so as you were talking, I did kind of
Me as
arrive
a
at
writer.
an idea, which is that you've got this person, you've got this detective who's looking for people who need representation in the system. You know what I'm saying? They need people who can actually solve problems because the police don't care and the corporations don't care. Everybody's just a shill for everybody else. So this guy's out there trying to make sure that not everybody gets the shaft, right?
Mhm.
And it's a little bit like that show Leverage, actually, which was on.
I didn't see that. I haven't seen that in a minute. I know the show.
Yep.
I know the show.
But that's his thing. Is he's trying to do this. I think he's also very much a live to fight another day kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? I think
Okay.
he knows that he's playing a long game, so he's helping people individually. He knows that it adds up over time. He doesn't want any particular case to be his last case, so he's trying not to pick fights he can't win.
Right.
Right? But he gets into this case that looks relatively straightforward and quickly comes to the like he's going to need some information. He's going to need to get X and Y and Z to do what he's trying to do. And so he
Right.
starts looking around the hacker scene to find somebody who can help him do this, and the only person with the talent to do what he needs is the person who's going to be starting fires, because he doesn't have necessarily access to like the super elite. He's looking for someone with the talent, and this person with the talent, there's reasons why this person isn't working like he's not just a criminal. He's not just like he's not pulling heists and things, data heists and things, because everyone
Right.
knows like he's going to be setting off alarms. This person has a wanted list. Like this person is a disaster, but
Yeah.
they have the talent. So he's going to have to get this. So pretty early. So this detective is going to be in a position where they're trying to control this, and the beginning of the second act, of course, is when they put this person in the field, because the end of the second act has got to be the beginning of the war that they were trying to avoid. Like they have been trying to stay out. Like they're gonna have to just say, like, fine, you want a war, here's a war. Like that's gonna have to be the third act. Like and you've got so much there, and there's a lot of different ways. Like there's all kinds of tools that these people might use to accomplish this goal and get the information they need and put it out there. Like they put this end of the second act is they put the information out there.
I mean, can they just ignore the war and just keep doing what they're doing?
Well, to an extent, but like this is a society where information travels very quickly. And when corporations are able to operate military organizations with no accountability, like this person has been able to move through society pretty freely.
Sure.
That's gonna get taken
I
away.
guess
They've
I
been,
guess I just am like, how is it different from Andor? Like, and I
well,
say that in the sense of like, Andor spends quite a significant portion of the season just, trying to do whatever the fuck he wants, right? He doesn't care about the rebellion. He's not a freedom
yeah.
fighter. He just, he wants to,
Well,
do
I
right
think
by
that's actually a
Marva,
flaw
and he
of
wants
I
to
think that's a
be,
flaw of the writing. And here's what I will say. So first of all,
yeah,
like helping
he wants
this,
to make money.
the whole thing in the beginning is the case, which is ultimately a case this detective has taken on because he is trying to win battles against the corporations. He's trying to give people a chance. He's trying to help society survive and thrive enough to put up a unified
So
front.
help me understand. Maybe I don't quite understand Punk yet. My understanding was that like Punk is being in the rebellion, is rebelling against, I don't know, the system, um, in order to be the authentic self, whatever that means. But if you're rebelling against the system because you want to usurp the system, something
Well,
that feels like
I
it
think
feels
that
like there's a disconnect there, because I think it kind of goes down to something about like what you've told me in the past, which is because the system is something external, it's a passive, it's a reactive thing.
well,
It's
so
not
here's what I'm kind of thinking. Going into what you were saying, I think the detective is actually more of a noirish character, but we need him
okay.
to exist in the cyberpunk universe. So he's going to be doing this on his own steam. He's looking for clients. He's trying to get. He's like, to some extent, I see him kind of operating the way that nonprofit legal organizations work today. You're looking for clients. You're looking for people who have experienced certain problems.
This is like the Deadpool thing, right? And it's like with Deadpool's clients for whom he mercenaries, right? Like at the beginning, of the movie, of the
Yes,
first one.
he's selective in who he takes, but this is a little
Correct.
but he's not. But this is
Yeah.
two steps further than that. Like
Okay.
when the ACLU asks you, "Would you like to sue somebody over this?" What they're actually saying is, we are working on getting a ruling in the Supreme Court against this particular piece of legislation, and we need someone who has suffered because of this legislation to be willing to sue the United States government. And
That
we
doesn't feel punk, but that doesn't feel punk to me.
it's
That's the only thing I'm saying.
well, here's what I'm saying. This I think is like, so he isn't I think private investigators in general aren't that punk, and I think he's not. I think he's the noirish character. I think but what I'm saying is he's at least active. He's got a presence in the movie. And then he has to go in order to in order to see this case through. You see what I'm
Are you
saying?
familiar?
Hear me out.
Are you familiar with?
Hear me out. Let me finish. In
Okay.
order to see
Okay.
this
Okay.
case through, he has to go find a punk. You see what I'm saying? He's got to go get a hacker who can get the information that he's going to get. And that hacker is not going to go quietly. That hacker is going to like take over screens, and they're going to create chaos. Like they're going to do whatever they want to do, but they can.
I guess
And
I think that. from a narrative perspective, what you're saying absolutely works.
And I think that in order
But
to succeed in the end, I think that this guard, this old guard detective, is
right.
going to need to get Punk. I think he's going to have to like let go of his procedural ethics and go a little
Well, this is
nuts.
kind of the question I was going to ask. Like, isn't that the act of becoming Punk not Punk? Because isn't he conforming to something?
No, he's not conforming to something. He's still on
Okay.
mission. He is letting go of the baggage that prevented him from shooting these people in the first place.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Interesting. So it's like an evolutionary tale.
It's an evolutionary tale, and he is like, let me give you an example. Something that is very definitely Punk is Hobo with a Shotgun.
Oh
There is
Lord.
no level.
Are you familiar with Death Note?
A little bit, yeah.
I don't think that
Okay, thank you,
L
Fergus.
I don't think that L is Punk. If you're familiar with L. L is the greatest detective in the world
Yep.
in that series.
Yeah.
Kira, maybe Light Yagami, who is the person who the problem with it inherently, of course, is that in order to amuse himself, a god of death, one of the Shinigami, drops a death note into the mortal world just to have some fun and entertain himself, and Light is the person who comes across it. Premise of Death Note, for anyone who doesn't know it, it's a notebook, and the name of the person whose name you write in the notebook shall die. That's basically like rule number one of the Death Note.
Okay.
And Light is is the number one high school student in Japan
Okay.
at the time of him. He's number one in the national exams. Like he is the smartest high school student in the Death Note universe.
Mm-hmm.
Death Note universe comes across this notebook and instantly sees the utility of using it to turn himself into basically like a one-man police force and eliminate evil from the world.
Okay.
Which of course, it's very much an anti-hero series.
Yep.
Like he very quickly, he becomes corrupted by the power, and it does eventually start becoming about his ego rather than like what is right and what is wrong. But Light perhaps might be a little bit Punk. Interesting to say that because of course like what ends up happening is that like when people start putting it together, which is like like all of the world's 100 most wanted criminals all drop dead of heart attacks at the same time kind of thing.
Yeah.
People are like, this is not a coincidence. What the hell is going on?
Part
And
of
so,
part of Punk, I think,
yeah,
is a lack of concern for consequence.
sure.
And
That's
and
very Deadpool.
and yes. And I think that what makes this character work is that he learns that it's time to stop being concerned, because his whole career up until this point has been about consequence. He's trying to give people more of a fighting chance. He's trying to like create opportunities.
I gotta ask, on a philosophical fundamental level, is that, I'm not going to say exclusively, but is that not essential to a human being actually being able to live their best life? And I do need to clarify this.
I understand what you're saying. Attachment is the root of all suffering. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it is. That's what I'm getting at. But it's like, well, I'm not saying like, oh, like if you want to murder someone, just like don't care about the consequence of murdering someone, go out and murder. No, that is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that like, when we talk about consequence, in a legal framework kind of thing, or a framework of legal actions, really like all it is the manifestation of anxiety. And we're better off letting go of our anxieties and like, rather believing in our authentic selves enough to know that like the consequence doesn't matter. We will survive. We will persevere, kind of thing. I mean, so like,
Yes.
but I don't
I
feel
think
like
that I
I
think
don't feel like I'm living a Punk
you're not.
existence, kind of thing.
Well, there is a degree to which you are. But you do care a lot. Look.
I would say I'm living a metal existence.
You are. I think that we're both much more metal than punk. As much as I am proud of
Yeah.
Smash Girl, and as much as I do, like everyone who's read it, who's in the scene, has told me I did a great job, and I can do a great job. That doesn't make me punk. I think it's a punk movie. Like,
What I love about this discussion is like now for so many years I've been wondering like man like it'd be so cool to be able to write a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. I have no idea how to do it. This is how you do it. You
yeah,
just write a punk movie.
yeah.
That's it.
You find an
Make
action.
it punk. Yeah.
And that can work. This is a gateway drug to that, but you can find any action, anything. The key to writing good absurdism is is
Yes.
is is not in having more clowns.
Idiocracy?
It's not more clowns.
No, it's not more clowns.
Like it's it's having giving a character an action that makes perfect sense to them.
I was gonna say giving a character fewer fucks to give.
Well,
Kind of
that's
thing.
not necessarily absurdism. That's going to be more just
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
like,
You're right. You're right.
but giving an action to a character that makes sense to them for their reasons, and accepting that it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you can, and absurdism can exist on all kinds of different levels. You know, and I've said this before, and it's fine if someone steals it. I've got an idea. It's kind of like a training movie idea. I have training movie ideas that I bring up with clients and things, right? So one of my training movie ideas is this guy who decides to dig a hole in China in his backyard because he's excited about the world. Like it is absurd, and he doesn't care. So what?
Every once in a while, I just read like articles on like the deepest boreholes that
Yes.
man has made, like
Yes.
in attempts and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yes. Isn't that interesting? It's an interesting concept. Like it would be overwhelmingly
Dude, like,
challenging. Clearly, it can be a
what
movie.
what
It's a lot of trips to Home Depot.
I understand I'm going off on a tangent
Yeah.
here, but like it like so like the deepest borehole known publicly. I mean, and there might be more that have been classified or whatever. But it was like there was a race, just like there was a space race between the Soviets and the West. There was a ground race between the Soviets and the West during the Cold War,
Yeah.
where they were there. There was actually, believe it or not, this kind of James Bond villain mentality that if if a superpower could access the mantle, there are in theory like subterranean weapons that could be developed that would give them control.
Again, the core. It all comes back to the core.
Yeah, it comes back to the core. And so, like, Russia drilled this borehole that, God, I want to say they got, like, well over 7 miles deep, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the composition of the crust once they started really getting down there was like not what they were expecting, not what science even like predicted at all. Like they call it somewhere in Siberia is they sealed it. I mean the hole is still there, but it's been sealed, and it's like they called it like the tunnel to hell or something like that, because like at those crazy depths, like the rocks like gain plasticity, and they started hearing these really weird things, and the temperatures were way higher than they were expecting. And yes, the whole thing is they just couldn't go any deeper because the rocks were actually getting wound around the bits.
Yeah.
Like if you try to like, drill through, like molten rubber.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
And that's just, to me, that's crazy. I want to know more about that. That's so cool. I also like maybe don't want to know more about that. I don't know. Like,
and the question arises of what reality are we living in? What would this person encounter as they started actually getting somewhere? And what threats would their town feel? Like how would this interfere with the other, like would he be creating the likelihood of some kind of massive sinkhole? Like, and at what point does he have to start doing public relations and unifying his community? Not to mention the racism. Like, so
I'm sorry. I just want to say it just to get it out of my head. I had this amazing little plot bunny just come frolicking across my mind here. So but it's like one of those cult compounds that we hear about, like, polygamist, and men are marrying like these 4-year-old girls and
Yeah.
stuff, but not anything crazy like that. The cult is literally, they're trying to dig the hole to China. That's all it is. But like anytime, like, the authorities try and raid the compound, they meet them with like
Uh,
appropriate physical like it was like some crazy like cultist compound, but really it's just these people. It's just a bunch of geologists
and to me,
just trying to
well,
dig as deep as they
to
can.
me, like it's Billy Bob Thornton in a Coen Brothers movie. Like to me, like it's literally just being like, well, we're all neighbors anyway. Like, why don't I just knock down the fence? Like, like let's give it a try. You never know until you try. Let's go for it. Like just but having the heart to see it
Yeah.
through, having the heart to see it through. Like,
I imagine it being
and then
exactly like Armageddon, but no asteroid. Just have all of the oil drilling team being like, "Nah, bro, we're digging a hole to China, and you're not gonna mess with us." And it's like literally they defend it like
yeah,
it is their
I see where you're
Vatican.
going. To me, it was much more innocent than that. Like, and I figured like he's gonna have to teach himself engineering. He's gonna have to learn to support like
Well, I'm not saying it would be violent, but
no. But I do see what you're getting at.
standing what they believe in. I just think it would be hilarious. It'd
I
be so outrageous.
I
I think it would be awesome. I don't know. I think that to me,
it's
it
a
feels
good
like
idea.
like
It's a good, but any action as long as it's compelling can work. And my point is my version is pretty absurdist. Like, and
yeah.
depending on what's down there, it will get more or less absurdist. But like, but
Oh, it's got to be more.
oh, I don't know. I think Rubber Ground is interesting in and of itself. I would have to sit with it and make some decisions. But like, but but there's that is writing a movie that doesn't take itself so seriously. You just find an action
Right.
that's, and I think there's a degree. It's all a sliding scale. I think there's a degree of that in Cyberpunk because these characters, like he's taking himself very seriously. He's trying to plan for the future. He's trying to help people in a totalitarian environment, but he ends up having to work with this person who's like just not going to give any fucks whatsoever. They're just going to like if they're happy to like if they're happy to work with people who can help screw the system and they'll make this happen. Like, but you're going to pay the consequences for being associated with this effort. Like, there's not going to be any place left to hide. So at the end of the first act, this guy is just going to have to be like, well, then we have to win. Like, this is it. This is what it comes down to. Then there's no other way to make this happen, and I can't just abandon these people. So I'm going in all the way. Like, and then the guy's going to be like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Not, and of course, our detective doesn't have any sense of what all the way actually means. Like, and by the end of the second act, like 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 the police are like clamping down on like the whole like the system. The system is using this as an opportunity to increase their hold on society, and this guy just has to like become the spark that fight that like he has to like inspire violence at this point.
I
Like,
I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I'm very much into the whole like let's do things because we can, and we want to.
that's so punk.
Uh,
That has to, yes.
so we did briefly mention Steven Spielberg,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't say that without discussing the actual, the greatest line from Jurassic Park, which is your scientists were so obsessed with whether or not they could, they never stopped to think about whether they should.
Right. Should is not a punk thing to think about. It's not. And the beautiful thing about the detective is he stops thinking about
So
he stops thinking
isn't
about
Jurassic Park a little punk in that prism, in that
like
filter?
like being a little punk isn't punk. Like, are you
Does
saying
it have to be all or nothing?
is there 3% punk in Jurassic Park? Okay, but like, is it punk to be
Just
counted?
of the efforts of the scientists, right? Is the efforts of are the efforts of the scientists in Jurassic Park punk?
Well, they're looking,
Or is it at the end of the day, is it just a money grab?
they're working for a corporation. If somebody had been doing this in their basement, that would have been punk.
Okay. All right.
Like,
oh, like that. Oh my God. Do you know about this story? I think it was the late 90s, but it might have been later than that. There was a kid God, he must have been, I want to say he was like a 7th grader or something like that, who built a working fission reactor,
Yeah, I do
like
remember that. I do
base
remember that. I do remember that.
in his
Yep.
basement. And like really like the authorities came down like
Yep.
a hammer.
Yep.
And like I think like
That's
it
punk.
ended like
That's punk.
it ended up like the kid was okay, and like I don't think he served jail time, but it was just like, we can't let civilians build fission reactors in their basement
Yep.
kind of thing.
Yep.
Like that's
Yep.
and then it was a kid, like things could have gone wrong potentially.
So here's the kind of let me sum up
Okay.
here's
So that's punk then.
yes.
That's punk. Okay.
I think the key to this thing is that I want to focus on the joy of burning the system down at least as much as the oppressiveness of the system itself. I do not want, and this is where I think that like getting the rights from R.L. Talsorian as opposed to from CD Projekt Red is an advantage, because
Okay.
because CD Projekt Red has a story. It is a highly reactive story. It would need to be deeply massaged. There's always a way. Fine. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Fine. What is V the protagonist trying to achieve, and what's his name? Johnny
Wait,
Silver
like V and V for Vendetta?
Silver. What's his name? Johnny Silverback or something like that. Like he's the rock star who's in the guy's head. Played by
Wait,
Keanu
what?
Reeves. In Cyberpunk 2077, the famous game now released by CD Projekt Red. Like,
Oh, you said V. I thought you were talking about V for
no,
Vendetta.
the
I'm sorry.
protagonist's name is V, and the problem becomes like,
That's not confusing.
is it it's not a coincidence either. Like, and it's homage, and that's great, and that's fine, but like, I would like to bring the punk back. And that's my case. That's that. If this was a development meeting,
Actually though, but that's a really good question. V in V for Vendetta, is that punk? I think it's unequivocally metal, but
it's not.
yeah,
And I'm going to tell
I'm
you
not
why.
sure it is.
I'm going to tell you exactly why it's not punk.
Because it's circumstantial,
Nope.
right? It's not really who he is.
It's because he's telling other people what to do. He is making himself an authority figure
And a
over
martyr.
and a martyr. He's telling other people how to live their lives. That's his whole deal. And
Is Natalie Portman saving him in the news television production studio, is that action punk? And that I would say yes, right? Just the action.
arguably, but splitting hairs is not a punk thing to do.
Okay, fair. Semantic.
like you just got to go in. You just got to go in, and the movie doesn't do that, and it never was intended to. Although
Yeah.
I think that writers are bad at punk.
Why do you think that is?
We overthink everything.
We do. We overthink
That's
quite a
it.
bit.
That's the problem. Like, don't think, do. Like, punk is go. Like, don't. We're trying to replicate punk, and like, punk is kicking down the trash can. Like, and that's what this hacker is always about. Like, he's just gonna disrupt people's lives so they can see what's wrong. Like, so they can see the bigger picture, so they don't forget. Like, whatever. There's a better way. Like, he just goes in and in and in and on. He's an endless supply of punches. He's the Wing Chun fighter. You can't put your hands on him, and he never stops hitting. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's bananas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the skill to stay as punk as he is. He's got the skill to do what he wants to do. But other people are going to get hurt. You see what I'm saying? It's going to happen. Now, this detective isn't about that, but they're going to have to like use the resources at their disposal to solve this one particular case, which is probably a very simple case. It's probably like, hey, I'm trying to get my kid this, or I'm trying to do that, and it's fucked. And he's like, yeah, okay, I can help. And he's like, this is a bigger case. Like, here's where this goes. We're going to have to give me some time. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And in the end, the detective is going to have to stop letting other people take the hits. That's what it really comes down to. He's using these people as tools to fight a battle. And
okay. So and you know what, I really like that line. You know why I really like that line? Because it addresses my biggest gripe with the current state of affairs in society, which is people love to complain about things and not actually do anything to rectify them.
Yes.
And yeah, so I mean, and that's so
He's done all this work on behalf of these other people because these other people's names are the ones out there. Like, he's the one who's finding the things, but this time it's like, you know what? This gets to a place where it's like, it's got to be my name because they are going to come. They're going to come hard. They're going to come to kill, and I can't let that be my clients. Like, that's not what I'm about. So I guess like this is no
yeah,
longer about you. It's about me now. Like LFG. Like this is my stand.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, I like that, and I think that I think that there's a good I think that there's good messaging in there. I also think it's very compelling.
yeah.
There are clearly strong lines of action. Thing I like about this, and this is the
Plenty of
thing,
action. You're going to have awesome stuff
yeah,
inside the computers. You're going to have awesome stuff in the city streets. You're going to have
yeah,
these people taking over corporate boardrooms. You're going to have all kinds of crazy, wacky characters. Who knows who they're? Are they going to have biker gangs or like drug dealers involved in this whole thing? Maybe. Like anything's possible. Like there's a wealth of opportunity.
yeah. The thing that I really like about this, and I again, I'm a sucker for good thematic messaging.
Yes.
Um, well, look, I understand that for film and television, we do not write to theme. And
Yep.
I agree with that. You have shown me the light there.
Thank you. I
I'm on
appreciate
board
that.
with
I'll take
that.
the
That
compliment.
said, um, a theme must evolve.
And it does.
Organically on its
Inevitably, it
own.
does. Inevitably.
Well, no. I have seen plenty of stuff that's just like there's just they just wrote something because they thought it was gonna be cool and there was no messaging, right?
I
Or the
would argue in
messaging was
those
like,
cases, though, there
yeah,
probably wasn't a strong line of action either.
probably not. No. Um, but so this is my point. It's like the theme still just has to exist. And I saw a movie. I'm not going to say the title of it, nor am I going to say who told me to watch it or the reasons I watched it. But it was, a movie meant to uh, wake and enlighten the uninformed on all of the conspiracies going on in the world today. And it messed me up a little bit. And because there is some undeniable truth to it. Like this is the movie that told me, and I didn't realize it, but then I did realize that this is a very true thing, that the very first Hollywood liaison to the Central Intelligence
Yeah, you've
Agency
said this many times.
was none other than Walt Disney, kind of thing. Um and that's true. And what I realized after I decompressed and settled after that was like the people making this movie totally fail to understand what the difference between right and wrong is.
Yeah.
Not because of the content, but because all they're doing is shining a light on things they perceive to be a problem and trying to get other people to fix it for them. That's what it's about when it comes down to it. Because if they were really trying to fix it themselves, they would get into the shit.
Can I make a recommendation of the
And
movie that
yeah,
achieves that? The movie that is the movie that movie aspires to be. And it's going to come from a director that you're not going to expect me to recommend.
okay.
Uwe
Doesn't mean
Boll's
I'll watch it, but I'll hear it.
Uwe Boll's Rampage.
Bring up my
Uwe
watch
Boll
list
is the
tab.
director responsible for most of the really bad video game movies of the early 2000s. I forget even. He did the Postal movie. He did like he did that one
Can
with
you
Christian
spell
Slater that I
can
can't
you
remember.
spell his name for me?
Uweboll. He was the
Wait, UWLE?
no
Oh,
UW.
Yui Bowl. Oh, okay. Yes, I know who Yui Bowl is.
He's the guy who fought his film critics in a boxing ring. Rampage is the movie that Joker wanted to be. Rampage is the movie that I forget what it's called, but the one, yeah, I know which movie you're talking about. It's that movie too. It achieves
I know
all of those things. It achieves all of those things, and it does it. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm not gonna say flawlessly. I'm not gonna say flawlessly. It's better than Falling Down. Like,
Oh, you know what? This sounds like a movie. I many years ago, I had this plot bunny idea about like it's getting political here, but about someone who was very liberal slash democratic minded, have like his daughter killed in a school shooting or something like that,
yeah,
and does kind of like the whole law-abiding citizen
yeah,
thing
yeah,
in response to it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and law-abiding citizen, I think, is a very interesting topic with things like this. I actually enjoy law. I really like Law-Abiding Citizen as a movie. Um, I think there are exceptionally strong lines of action in that movie,
I
to
think
be
so too.
honest.
And the truth is, like, most of like Death Wish. Like,
And I
let's just
and I adore Gerard Butler.
let's just
Oh,
look to
Death
the
Wish.
template. Let's look to the one that
Oh
got there
wait,
first. Let's talk about
sorry.
Death.
You said Death Wish. I was
Yep.
thinking Death Race, not
No,
Death
Charles
Race. Death
Bronson
Wish.
and Death Wish.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
is the template for that kind of revenge thriller. It absolutely 100% is. You can't tell me otherwise. And
Well, let us be fair. Titus Andronicus is the template for all revenge thrillers.
okay, well, but the thing is, and this is true of Titus as well, and the thing that Charles
It's my
Bronson,
favorite. It's my favorite Shakespeare play. Call me nuts. It's my favorite Shakespeare play.
you know, my two favorites are not necessarily. I have three top. I have a top three. I have a top
I
three.
tell people Othello, like if I have to actually give an answer,
But
but
it's Titus because
yeah, it's really Titus.
I'm gonna say my top three are Much Ado,
Okay,
which is fucking
Much Ado
hilarious
is
when it's done right.
yeah, Much Ado is amazing.
Uh,
My favorite comedy is Twelfth Night, but yeah.
Twelfth Night is number two, and
Okay.
these are in no particular order. And number three, you will absolutely understand, knowing me, but people who don't know me would never guess.
Oh, let me try. Let me try to guess. Let me try to guess.
I will.
Number
You want a
three.
really big hint? You want a really big hint? In the last,
Just tell me if it's a comedy, a drama, or a history.
it is a drama. It is a historical drama.
Well, I mean, is it one of the histories like Edward the Fourth or
No,
whatever?
it's a
Like,
drama. It's a classical drama, and I will also tell you that there is a feature film adaptation, which I love. Which
oh,
I
Othello.
love. Nope. Nope. As soon as I say it, you're gonna be
Huh?
like, of course.
Well, I mean, Hamlet's been done.
I
I,
love Brenna's Hamlet.
I was gonna say like you must love Hamlet, but I wouldn't have picked Hamlet.
Nope. Hamlet's hilarious, by the way. I
The Tempest.
Hamlet. My friend Tyler Seipel did the funniest
Mhm.
Hamlet I have ever seen, and it was phenomenal. I've
Hamlet can be done as a comedy. I swear to God,
it's
Hamlet
about
can be
two
done as a
stupid
comedy.
kids trying to make their parents mad and getting everyone killed. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's a dark comedy. Like,
Yeah.
it's a and I
Is it Tempest? Is it Tempest?
no, I'm actually I'm here or there on. You know what? I can't say that because here's the thing about the Tempest and me.
Yeah.
It's a little bit rocky. It's hard to find Prospero's strongest line of action, but
I'm not the biggest fan of Tempest.
but I was working late one night at Antias Theater Company in Burbank,
Yep.
in Glendale, and I was hanging lights and just manicuring the. I was working the lighting inventory and repairing things by myself in the middle of a dark theater, and in the black box next door, Tony Amendola, who is actually on a commercial right now, and I see him all the time on Paramount Plus. But he's a really pretty well known actor. He was the monk who helped in the Zorro movies. He's the he's the he's the he's the
What
old,
the old Zorro movies or
yeah,
the newer
the
ones with
ones with
Antonio
the ones with
Banderas?
Antonio Banderas. He was
Okay.
he was the
Oh, he was the Francescan friar in
yes,
those.
yes. I
I
love
love, dude. Yeah, that was a great character. Great character.
Tony is a phenomenal like he was in Continuum. He was the sort of like the lead.
He's a friend of yours.
Oh, and he's magnificent.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
he was working on Prospero next door. While and he's just not one of those voices. Like he's just you can't.
I really liked his character in the Zorro movies. I really liked his character.
He's got so much presence. He's got so much command. Like, and he just was back there. Like, Prospero is enforcing his will on the world. Prospero is a mad scientist. Prospero is like a defiant cultist, like demanding that his will be done, and the world is slipping through his fingers because he has kids.
Yeah.
It's fucking great. I didn't get it. I did not get it. Tony, if you ever see this, and he might, like, truthfully, he might, like, that night,
just I can only take your word for it, but it doesn't. That night, it doesn't surprise me at all.
And this wasn't stuff Tony was saying. I was just listening to how Tony was performing the text, and I was like, like he is defying the gods. Like that performance from Tony that night is better than anything I ever saw from Christopher Lee. Like that.
Wow.
That was the performance Christopher Lee.
That's a statement.
That was the performance Christopher Lee spent his Hammer years trying to give, and Tony gave it that night.
I mean, let's be fair. Like Christopher Lee is wonderful, like wonderful,
indisputably. Like, yeah. But this was the thing Christopher Lee was working towards, and I got to be there when Tony gave it, and I was the only person there, and he didn't know I was there.
That's dope.
Like,
is it Macbeth? Please don't say Romeo and Juliet.
It's not. Although I do think Romeo and Juliet is hilarious. Like, no, that's.
Yeah. All right, what is it? I'm out of plays now. What is your third favorite Shakespeare play?
Coriolanus.
I would have never guessed that.
What am I all about?
That's one of the obscure. I haven't read it, and that's one of the obscure ones. So it's like I don't even really know it.
Don't read the play first, because
just see it.
You know who directed and starred in this? And it's got Gerard Butler in it too as the bad guy. Do you know who wrote and directed and starred in this production? Do you know who it is now?
Tell me it's Kenneth Branagh.
No, it's Ralph Fiennes.
Oh, okay. That's. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna compare Kenneth Branagh to Ralph Fiennes. That is also a phenomenal choice.
Like, and it was something Ralph Fiennes did on it. He produced it independently. It came out the same year that like The Artist came out and Hail Caesar. Like, it was a good year.
Ralph Fiennes and Hail Caesar is one of the best. Oh my god! And just say it like this, you know.
There are so many god. Like my top 3 favorite Ralph Fiennes performances, and I don't think anyone can dispute.
Well,
my top 3. One of them is Hail Caesar. Okay.
Okay. Yep. I agree.
In Bruges.
Okay.
For obvious reasons, if anyone hasn't seen it, and Coriolanus, because
I look. I'm not gonna say that any of your choices are bad. How can you not have Red Dragon on that list?
Yeah, watch. I prefer his performance in Bruges to his performance in Red Dragon. I prefer his performance in Hail Caesar to his performance in Red Dragon. And
I would pick his performance in Hail Caesar over Red Dragon because it's just masterful. It's so good.
And and his Harry, his asshole supervillain, like maniac, like it's just. And there's so many dimensions to him as an actor. He can do so much. All the stuff that you want to see from Ralph Fiennes, all the stuff you actually want, like the dripping. I would describe his performance in Coriolanus as hate sexy. Okay. And being from the East Coast, you know exactly what hate sexy is. This man went to the pain gym and and he drank the sweat.
That's the best line in the fan-made A Harry Potter sequel musical. So I subsisted on a diet of protein drinks, falcon eggs, and rocks.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the hate sexy performance that you want from Ralph Fiennes, clearly. Yeah. And he read Coriolanus and said, "This is the hate sexy performance of my career. I don't need to cling to the Bond movies. I don't need to cling to this other stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to direct it."
I'm not a huge fan of him as M. And that's not a knock against him. It's just like
No, but it's the chill. It's the chill that people like about the character, and they are correct to like it. Like, he comes off as so fucking chilly. Like, and yet so smart.
Oh, you mean like Frosty, kind of.
Yeah. So he nails it, like, and in a way you can see what's stewing underneath. It's a great performance, but like, we don't need it. We have
Oh, dude,
Coriolanus.
his subtextual acting
So
is
Coriolanus
legendary.
Coriolanus is about a Roman general who gets sent off to conquer, I forget where, and his arch nemesis, probably Ireland. His arch nemesis is Gerard Butler, and he's fighting these battles and he's leading these soldiers, and he finally like does what he went to do, and he conquers the place, and he comes back to Rome, and he is not ready to stop the fight. Coriolanus is going to somehow, just like Shakespeare understood narcissism and pathology with Iago, he understood PTSD with Coriolanus. He goes all the way with it. Like, Coriolanus is going to find a war whether you give it to him or not. So he gets back and he's like, these people are hungry.
You also see this in characters like Shylock in Merchant of Venice, kind of thing.
So he gets back and he's like, these people are hungry for bread. They're like, yeah, we've been at war. Let's get to work. He's like, no. These people are the enemy of the state. And they're like, hang on, buddy. And he's like, nope, you made me the king. You made me the king. You said I had to do some work. Let's do some work. Let's go to work. Like, and he starts waging war on these people until eventually he picks a fight with his own nation and they expel him. And the only way for him to continue his fight, right, is to go back to his enemy and say, you wanted Rome, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Like,
okay, yeah.
So he creates such an enemy out of his allies that he has to turn around to his enemy to continue the fight. He's like, I need
Which, of course, is just like a huge vicious cycle kind of thing.
And then, I don't want to spoil it for you. Shakespeare ended it on a button. He ended it on a thematic button. I can forgive it because it's so strong all the way through. Like, watch. Yeah. You're gonna. And Gerard Butler and Ray Fiennes screaming at each other, and Ray Fiennes just being like, not to mention the rest of the cast. I think Helen Mirren's in this freaking movie. Like, do yourself a favor. It's just...
wow. Okay, Helen Mirren is one of my favorite actresses still alive today, kind of thing. It's like her, Judi Dench, Maggie Smith, like, yeah.
He said it's a modern day Rome thing, so they have guns and stuff. So there's no sword play. It's all... And the reason why he had guns is so that they got to hit each other when the ammunition ran out. That's the reason he did it.
Okay.
Like, him and Gerard Butler just screaming and beating the crap out of it. It's hate sexy all the way through.
Yeah, Gerard Butler is... I mean, I adore Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler has never been... Believe it or not, my first exposure to Gerard Butler ever was Phantom of the Opera, the movie adaptation.
Yeah.
And I just thought he was incredible in that, and then I just started seeing him in other things that he was really, really good in, like... Look, say what you want. Say what you want about Frank Miller, but I think that 300 was a dope movie.
The moment I appreciated Gerard Butler as an action hero was Gamer from Neville, Dean and Taylor after their initial success with Crank.
Gamer.
It's an obscure movie, and they
I feel like I can picture the font of that title.
Yep. That movie was about basically like celebrity gamers, kind of like we have on Twitch, taking over actual people and using them to fight each other. And so it was kind of like it was a prison sentence that you would get, and you'd be and so they would take you over, and they
would implant a chip in you, and then you would be controlled by a gamer.
Which is theoretically really bad. Gerard Butler is just trying to get his freedom, so it does but he was so good in it, and there was...
I mean, that's like Death Race almost.
It is a lot like Death Race, and the idea that human life is that cheap is something Neville, Dean and Taylor are so good at exploiting. So, like, for example, at the end of the...
Well, that's a concept that I love to lean into in anytime I'm writing something that involves war, right? Like,
yeah.
And you and I, but you had this great point about it when I was talking about, like, no, like, dude, the theme is war as hell, and you're like, you don't need a whole movie to do war as hell. You can do that in a single scene, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, it comes down
But
to
yeah, like
it,
that. No, I mean, go ahead. Like that is it though.
and yeah, it is, and clearly they're leaning so hard into it. But Neville Dean and Taylor are also so nuts that the making of the movie is something that tends to be a little intense. Like
Yeah.
like and they had a dance number because the evil villain had like hacked all the gamers and he just was like manipulating these people in this huge dance number for purely ego, like the whole. And it is action, like it's one guy trying to reclaim his freedom and another guy trying to literally control the world in a not implicit, totally explicit manner. So he ends up having to team up with the guy who was piloting him, and they have to find a way to make it work. And it's not a great movie, but like it has so much stuff in there. And Gerard Butler was so down. He was so ready to say yes to so much.
He just strikes me as a really just professional, skilled actor.
And I'm going to tell you right
Like,
now, the
yeah.
validation of that is in Coriolanus. I Ray Fiennes
Okay.
Ray Fiennes hired him to act against Ray Fiennes.
Oh, Ray Fiennes directed and starred in it.
That's what I'm telling you.
Okay. Okay.
And paid
Okay.
for it and produced it.
Oh, so Ray Fiennes bet himself on it, essentially.
Ray Fiennes was like, no, I think Ray Fiennes was like, we're doing Coriolanus before I'm too old, is what happened.
When was this made?
Late, like less than 10 years ago, way more than.
No, it's somewhat recent. Ray Fiennes is like pushing 70 now, isn't he?
I'll find out. I'll tell you in a sec. Anyway, that's neither here
No,
nor there.
that's awesome. No, I mean it's nice. I mean, I guess it's nice to hear it. It's also like maybe a little bit. I don't know. I'm not gonna say discouraging, but anxiety inducing for someone like me who like
As I recall,
eventually
he
would just
largely
like
got
to
it
have.
financed. He largely got it financed through the BBC, I think.
Oh, okay. It's like I would really like to not have to just do crazy investing for the rest of my life. I would at some point like to be able to just go to studio executives and be like, I have this great track record, give me money to make this movie. And they'll just say like, okay.
We may at some point need to do a pitching pixels like aside and just talk about film finance, like
Sure.
because there's so much to discuss there. But
My knowledge of it is like I understand some of the avenues one can walk, and that's it.
yeah, well,
But
I mean, as long as you're happy with the movie we came up with,
yeah,
basically I
I,
feel like I went on a rant and you agreed with me is what happened. But but
well, again, is that I've never played the game. I know virtually nothing about it other than what I've read in the Wikipedia. I think to me, just like understanding, again, you said authorial intent. I mean, and for me, I would just kind of say it in more layman's terms, which is like just understanding like what the game's about,
and the
really.
game is
And
about the thing is the game in at least like the difference between the tabletop role playing game and the CD Projekt Red game is that the role playing game is about the players by nature, by nature,
as it needs to be, as a
and
game does need to be.
and the CD Projekt Red is about the world building, and it's more well known, and it's a beautiful piece of open world storytelling. It's a for all the reasons we have already said that gaming narrative is not cinematic narrative. It really plays very well. It is a triumph for all of the misdeeds of
This
CD
was
Projekt
a
Red and how they
triumph.
treated their people. It is a triumph creatively. Like
If anyone knows that reference I just made, I
I
love you.
missed it. I didn't hear what
Yeah.
you said.
This was a triumph.
I do not. Is it another Rick and Morty thing?
No, no.
Oh, is it Muppet
Oh my
movie? Was it the
goodness.
Muppet movie?
No, I'm making a note here. Huge success. You don't know this?
Is it? It sounds very familiar.
Oh, it's hard to overstate my satisfaction. You don't know this?
I.
You didn't play.
Oh,
You
it's
didn't
Portal. It's
play
Portal. It's
Portal.
Portal.
It's Portal.
It's Portal.
It's the best song ever.
That's what it is. It's
It's
Portal.
GLaDOS
Yep.
singing after you beat her.
Yep.
Oh my god, that song was a meme before there were memes.
That's true. So yes.
On that note, Portal would be, I think,
Do you want to do
a really
Portal next
fun
week?
movie to do. No.
What do you want to do next week?
Only because and I have a reason for this. I actually think that Portal let's not fuck with Portal. That's kind of my
No.
no, that's kind of my attitude on it. Portal works because of the brilliance of its gameplay.
That's true. But that's the challenge, though. That's the challenge as a filmmaker. Which
I don't. But the thing is that the reward there are no, the reward is itself in Portal. I wouldn't even say, like, the narrative is just there as a binding agent. I would not actually say that the reward is the narrative, with the exception of that song at the end, the cake, and how it doesn't exist.
There's a lot of comedy.
And
the characters in general.
And the companion cube.
Yeah. Wheatley.
Other than those things,
he hasn't picked one yet.
There's no narrative, and there doesn't need to be.
Okay.
And that's the whole thing. It's not like a game like Tetris, right? Where, like, exploring, like, could we turn Tetris into a movie, right?
I want to do Portal at some point to see, because I bet there's a solution there. My attitude.
No, I'm not saying that there isn't a solution.
I mean, an exciting, satisfying one. I mean, like,
there absolutely is a solution. I'm positive that there is.
But I'm saying we have to do this as opposed to we can't do this solution. I'm saying I bet somewhere in there has
to be a we have to do this. The thing about it to me is just like the magnificence of Portal. In part, was some of the magnificence that we talked about in Mega Man X, is that the game forced you to learn its rules through the gameplay.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of thing. Yeah, it taught you, that, like, okay, this is your portal gun. It makes both the orange and the blue portals.
Yep.
And that, you need both active to go through either, and they create a tunnel themselves. But other than that, you are left up to figure out how to solve the puzzles. Like, if there's a sentry that's going to shoot and kill you, you sometimes realize, oh, wait, I have to portal the sentry, not myself, kind of thing.
Yep.
And, and that's the thing. It is perhaps the most immersive game I have ever played because of that. And it's a first-person game. It's for a modern console. It is so immersive, and it would be like, that's the kind of game that, like, I think that the Oculus was born for, right? Like, imagine Portal, but you're holding the gun, right? And you're playing it on a fully full dive VR headset kind of thing. That is
they have
where
they have actually done Portal tests for VR.
Yes.
Like, they have done Portal VR tests already. So
and, like,
that being said,
I feel like that is where the game would reach its absolute pinnacle. And I just don't think a movie could ever compete with that. That's all I'm saying.
I see 2 points of value. The first is cracking the story. And the second is that so much of the storytelling, and this is the other side of it. This may actually sell you on it. So much of the storytelling of Portal as a feature film would be stunt work more than anything else.
It really would be stunt.
Because
so here's the thing. I want to say this, and as a stunt performer, I feel compelled to say this. I view action sequences the same way I view sex scenes in a movie, which is, if you're gonna have it, you better have an actual really good narrative reason for having it. You cannot just have action for the sake of action. You can't, because at that point it's just fan service. It's just eye candy, and it's boring. It is.
I would almost say a Portal movie should not have Chell speak.
Sure. I mean, Chell doesn't speak in the game.
No, I think this is what just came to my mind. I was thinking, okay, like, Greg's right, and then I thought Steven Soderbergh's Haywire.
Well, so here's what I was thinking.
Like,
here's my thought.
Yep. And I'm like, oh, damn it, Gina Carano was so good in Haywire. Oh my god. Like,
I'm kind of now having unlocked a little bit of this thought process on how to make, farce
Yeah. Oh,
and
okay.
punk.
Yeah. Hit me with something farcical.
What if, I mean, we don't really know anything about Shell in the game,
Greg.
right?
Greg.
You wake up, what?
I think we need to do this next week.
Well, our talk about it next week. Fine, we'll do Portal.
Don't say another word because that's part of next week's show.
Gladys wants the data. Shell wants the cake. That's the movie. That's. I think that's it. I think GLaDOS wants the data and Shell wants the cake.
We just said absurdism is giving character a goal that makes sense to them. That doesn't need to make sense to anybody else.
And at the end of the movie, we discover that the companion cube is cake.
Because there has
and
to
so
be a way out.
If Chell wants to eat the cake, she has to eat the companion cube because it's fratricide. That's the achievement. That's the achievement in the Xbox game when you have to throw the companion cube in the lava to continue solving part of the puzzle. You get the achievement fratricide.
I think there's a lot there. All right, Greg. I think this is where we wrap.
Cake. And also, like, that would be a great, like, thing for, like, what are those series that they do? Like, is it furniture or is it cake? Kind of thing.
We'll talk about the cake next week.
The cake is a lie!
All right.
Most
Thank you to anybody who's watching. This is a lot of fun. I think we did get to where we wanted to go. People might not agree with my idea on this. Talk in the comments. Talk to us, for crying out loud. And we'll see you next week for Portal. Anything, any parting words? Greg?
I have no parting words. Stay safe, believe in yourselves, be your authentic selves. Don't be afraid of who you are.
Don't be a stranger, Ranger. We'll catch you later.
Yep.